What's going on? Deeper dive Thursday. Still no Laffy. Trying to improve this show as much as we can on a day-to-day basis. So here we are. 9-game slate coming off of, I don't know, honestly, I feel like the same slate yesterday. Just the same sort of weird stuff at the top. How did it end up for you yesterday?
Really, really bad. It was just a totally lost slate from the beginning. I never really got anything that gained any traction. So it was just a pretty annoying slate. What about you?
Same situation. Pitching, knocked it out of the park. Hitting, I took it from the outfield bleachers and hit it back towards home plate. So it was great. It was absolutely great.
For me, it was like one of those where I had a ton of Verlander, so I put a lot of lineups in good situations, but I had a little bit more than the field on Montgomery. I was a little below the field on Musgrove, who both tanked lineups. I was overweight on Hauser. So I had some lineups that had potential, but it was just like every lineup that kind of started to do well. I had some Brewers lineups do really well for 4 innings and then die. Yeah. And then I had some Cubs lineups that just stopped scoring. It was just one of those nights.
On to the next one, I guess. Ooh, I just realized that the green stripes in my shirt are clear. So the lasers are coming through my body. Man, it's going to be a rough one. Let's get the plugs out of the way. Deeper Dive is the promo code. 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus. Any monthly package you choose can include Fantasy Cruncher, not Fantasy Cruncher Pro, just Fantasy Cruncher. And this is just for monthly packages only. Won't work for weekly, won't work for annual, but if you want to get a month of Awesemo Plus for 50% off, use the promo code Deeper Dive. And we are brought to you by Yahoo Sports. They are the presenting sponsor of this show, of the strategy show, and of the Early Bird, which I will be on tonight with Dan Strafford for the first time ever. So Laffy leaves and all sorts of combinations are coming out of the woodwork. Can't wait to do it. Where was I? Yahoo. Yes. 10 max entries. You don't have to worry about going up against 150. No management fee contest every day. They're running a fantastic no management fee contest for week 1 of the NFL season. They're going to have lower fees across other contests just in general, better payout structures, just a much better experience for the user. So highly recommend you check it out. Check out Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article from EMAC. At the top of that article, you will see some instructions on how to sign up. You could use the promo code AWESEMO to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. And hit that thumbs up. Jake said it right. We want to get at least 300 today, so that's the plan. If you start early, you don't have to do it later. I always say. You ready to do this?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Orioles and Rays. 4.2 run implied total for the Orioles, 5.8 for the Rays. It's Asher Wojciechowski. That's the first time I actually said that. Not trying to make a joke about Woj. Ryan Yarbrough going for the Rays. Let's just start with Yarbrough here right now. I felt like I was going to get a lot of him when I just first looked at the slate, and then I saw his salary. Will you be paying the $9,300 freight for Yarbrough against the Orioles?
I don't think so. I'm right there with you. It's a perfectly fine spot for him. It's a downgrade that he's getting out of Tropicana Field and going into Baltimore, but it's still a decent matchup. He's a pretty decent pitcher, and he's starting the game, which gives him a higher pitch count projection, but he's just expensive. And while there's not a great mid-range on this slate, there are enough pitchers that I have projected a little bit ahead of him to where I don't think, or that are cheaper that I have projected. I don't expect to get to much. He's the kind of guy where at the end of the night, if he's in a tournament lineup that did, if he does really well and he's in a tournament lineup that's at the top at really low ownership, it wouldn't be shocking, but it's just not a spot that I anticipate getting to.
Yeah, he's just a tad overpriced for this particular slate, and it makes it really difficult. Just knowing what is the talent level of some of the guys that are just above him in salary. But that's not the only pitcher in this game. And Yarbrough's not getting any ownership, so it's really not all that important unless you really do like him. Woj is also not getting much ownership. And the Rays bats are. I have an odd amount of interest in Woj, and I don't entirely know why, but I think it's just because everything at the bottom is bad.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you were in Slack when I was talking about it, kind of as I wrote the deep dive article, but I went into this slate having seen what the bottom tier pitching options were, thinking that or excited about Wojciechowski here because he's struggled recently, but he's also faced the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Astros in his last 3 starts. So that's going to happen. And he didn't look like totally overmatched in those starts. He just had kind of underwhelming starts, but he still has the 3rd highest strikeout percentage on the entire slate. His plate discipline numbers are well above average. And with people taking the recency narrative, I saw a different site, tweet out his numbers over his last 4 starts, completely ignoring who he faced. With people taking that into account, he's going to be at low ownership, where the guys that are getting ownership aren't really any good either. But the issue that I'm running into, and the reason, I think I'll still get to him some across 150 tournament lineups, but the reason I have absolutely no confidence in it is Tampa Bay is running out the worst possible lineup for Wojciechowski in a couple of different regards. For one, this year, he's struck out about 31% of right-handed hitters compared to between 20 and 21% of lefties. Tampa Bay has 5 righties and 4 lefties in the lineup, but all 4 lefties are in the top 6. So he's got to go through the lefties kind of back to back, or, in just kind of, grouped together, and he's going to face them more often than the righties at the bottom. On top of that, Eric Sogard's leading off, which means there's a really good chance that he's getting to the second at bat of the game already in double digits in pitch count, because Sogard doesn't strike out and he just puts together really, really good at bats. Third, most of the high strikeout guys are out of this lineup. Mike Brosseau's on the bench. Mike Zunino's on the bench. Instead, you have Matt Duffy in the lineup with about a 15% strikeout percentage. You have Travis d'Arnaud instead of Zunino. D'Arnaud, since last season, has about a 21% strikeout percentage. Zunino's at 38%. So Sogard's a low K guy. Meadows is a low strikeout guy. The only 2 hitters in this lineup with a strikeout percentage above 23% since last season are Jesus Aguilar batting 7th and Willy Adames batting 9th. And those guys are both decent hitters anyway. So it's a really, really, really scary matchup for Wojciechowski. Like I said, I'll still get to some just because of his strikeout numbers compared to the guys around him that are getting much more ownership. But I also will be getting to a lot of Tampa Bats, and I feel better about the Tampa Bats than I do Wojciechowski.
I'm on the exact same page. I'm only really going to get to Woj because Aaron Svali is projected for 30% ownership. And it's just like, okay, well, I need to spread that out somehow, because that's not what I want.
And if you compare him to Svali, yes, I think Savali is the better play. I think Savali projects higher.
Yeah.
Savali doesn't have an easy matchup against the Mets.
Nope.
It's not the worst matchup in the world, but it's kind of comparable to the one Woj has, because the Mets don't strike out a ton either, and they have a lot of pretty good hitters in their lineup. So if you're going to get 30% ownership to Savali and 1 to Wojciechowski just because Savali projects a little bit better and the matchup's a little bit safer, I'll take a chance, especially with how much ownership Tampa Bay is getting, because you do get some added value to your lineups by having the pitcher that just shut down 20% of the field if he does pitch well.
Right. And I took a look at the strikeout props. Slight nod to Woj over Savali right now. They're both at like 4.5, so we're not talking about something like ridiculous numbers here, but the potential is there. And it's not just about strikeouts. Obviously, the Rays in this spot in Baltimore are super scary. But I'm trying to win a contest, not just like pick the average outcome. So
right. Yeah, and there are some times where I'll be on a pitcher that's 2% owned, and I'm just like, the field's missing the boat. Like, This is a fantastic play. I feel great about it. This is not one of those times.
No, not at all. It's just, well, shit. Everybody below 700 or 7,000 kind of sucks. So,
right. This is just an example of, and it's something that I think goes completely overlooked in tournaments because nobody wants to admit it, but even the best at projecting things are really bad at it.
Yeah.
And, it's a matter of, some people are better than others relative to each other, but everyone's bad at projecting the future. So when you have a bunch of guys that are really, really questionable and everyone wants to take 1 or 2 of them, there's definitely merit to just saying, okay, well, these people are going to be wrong a high percentage of the time, so I'll just win money when they're wrong.
Especially, like, I'm with you. I'm going to have a lot of Rays. They rank as my number 1 stack. They're the most owned team by a mile right now on both sites. Everybody in double digits, basically, except for Matt Duffy. But at the same time, every share of Woj you have, if it's good, is way better than just, even if it's just average, is way better than just his performance. It is ethering a quarter or 15% of the lineups in play. So that's kind of fun. What do you like about the Rays?
Everything.
Yeah.
Their salaries are pretty nice, and the guys that aren't great values are still valuable in tournaments because they'll come in at lower ownership, like an Eric Sogard leading off. He's a terrible point per dollar option at $5,000 on DraftKings, but he's a lower owned way to get exposure to a team with a 6 implied run total against a pitcher who, while he has good strikeout stuff, gives up a ton of power in a hitter's park with a questionable bullpen. Willy Adames at the bottom of the order, I think, is actually one of the best values at shortstop today. He's really quietly, like, it never gets talked about, but since the start of last season, he has 531 plate appearances against right-handed pitching. He has a 122 WRC plus and a 160 ISO. Those are pretty decent numbers for his salary. It's just everyone in this lineup, you can make an argument either that they're a really good value option or that they're a good contrarian option.
I don't really have anything to add there. They just grayed out like crazy today. Hell of a park, hell of a setup. It's everything looks good. My favorite bat would be Meadows, just in terms of everything, but I don't think that I'm like coming to some amazing conclusion by recommending Austin Meadows. Orioles bats against Yarbrough.
I don't hate it in tournaments. I mean, they only have a 4.1 implied run total. Yarbrough is good. The park is still favorable. Judging by how miserable it feels in my apartment right now, I'm assuming it's not humid outside. I think it's supposed to storm here later too, so that means it's probably humid. Andres Alberto is a good hitter, doesn't strike out a lot, good hitting conditions. Same goes for Anthony Santander. Nunez has power. 1 through 6 in this order really is not the worst collection of hitters. So if they're going to be completely unowned, I think that it's kind of interesting, but not like it's a favorite spot.
Yeah, I mean, Mancini looks fine, righty, lefty, whatever. Yarbrough's not getting any ownership. 4.2 run implied total is nothing special. I don't get the sense that I'll be getting a ton of Orioles. Let's keep going. Pirates and Nats. 3.5 run implied total for the Pirates, 5 for the Nats. 67% chance to win for Washington. Steven Brault for the Pirates. A stepped on Max Scherzer going for the Nats. So we've seen like 80 pitches? That's like the likelihood, I guess.
Yeah, according to the Washington Post article. But the thing for me is that even if you told me Scherzer was throwing 100, I would have trouble getting to him.
Not a great spot.
He threw a 64 pitch simulated game on Saturday. I'm willing even to say that he throws, let's say, 90 because it's Max Scherzer, and when he hits 80 pitches, good luck getting him to actually come out of the game.
Same thing I said on the strategy show. I was like, if he's pitching well, like, he's just going to look at the manager and tell him to fuck off.
Right, exactly.
He's done it once.
I'm not taking the actual pitch limit with much credibility, but he's still what it comes down to is you're comparing him to Gerrit Cole because of his salary. Yeah. He's going to be more. He's got a shorter leash than Gerrit Cole. That's basically certain. And the matchup is much worse. The Pirates' active roster has the third or second lowest strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching, whereas Cole's facing the best strikeout matchup. They are an above-average offense. The Pirates are, whereas the Tigers are the worst offense. There's obviously an ownership difference, but I just don't think that Scherzer is even in the same ballpark, given the likely limitations he has and the matchup as Cole.
Will you end up with any, or are you going to remove him completely?
I didn't physically remove him, but in the first 800 lineups I crunched, I had 4%, and I'm sure once I narrow that down to 150, I will have none.
Okay. Yeah, he's projected for 5-6% ownership, nothing crazy.
Right. On DraftKings, I have Scherzer at 22.5 points, which is one of the high marks that I've seen, but I still have him 8 points behind Cole.
Yep. We're on the exact same page then. I don't get the sense that he just shows up in anything. If I have him in 1 or 2, I'm not going to freak out and change it or anything, but right. I just don't expect it to happen. Any Brault?
I don't think so. He's a decent pitcher when he's throwing strikes, but that's obviously a big if. But the thing that really I don't like here, even though we need cheap pitching on this slate, it's just a brutal strikeout matchup. Turner, Eaton, Rendon, Soto, Kendrick, Suzuki, those guys are all tough strikeouts. Brian Dozier's a good enough hitter. So is Victor Robles. It's a dangerous lineup that puts the ball in play. If I get to a little bit because he's so cheap, that's fine, but he's not someone that I anticipate getting much of.
Same page there. Ownership on the Nats is a little weird. They're a bit more chalky on FanDuel than they are on DK. Originally today, most of that was going to Brian Dozier. Now Turner, Kendrick, and Suzuki all into double digits. Nats are basically unowned on DraftKings. They're 10th overall. It's again just Dozier, really. You anticipating stacking up the Nats against Brault?
I hope so. I'm in the process of trying to put my early lineups into my spreadsheet so I have a better idea. But we have them in the top stack tool with a much better chance of being the top stack than their ownership reflects. And they just look like the anti-optimizer play where these guys are really expensive. On DraftKings, Turner's 5,600, Rendon, Soto are both 5,600, Kendrick's 49, Suzuki's 44. You really can't get these guys with Gerrit Cole.
No.
And the mid-range doesn't make you feel real great when you're avoiding the top range of pitching. So it'll be really uncomfortable to make Nat stacks, but I do think it's a really high upside spot. I do think they'll be under-owned. So I would like to get to them in tournaments.
Okay. I would imagine that even though Scherzer is on a pitch count, that does not make the Pirates all that interesting to you?
No, still can't see getting there.
Okay. Favorite bat in the game?
Either Kendrick or Suzuki when you factor in position.
Okay.
Dozier at 3,600, but then Kendrick and Suzuki.
Okay. Yeah, obviously Dozier getting some love in the industry because of his price tag. So,
right.
Let's keep it moving. White Sox lineup just came out, so I was refreshing my sheet.
Yeah, Jimenez had scratched.
Oh, okay. Mets and Indians. Hold on. Didn't want that cough on the air. 4.5 or 4.4 for the Mets, 4 for the Indians. Noah Syndergaard, your boy, going for the Mets. Aaron Svali going for the Indians. We need to start with Svali, at least from a DK perspective. No ownership on Yahoo or FanDuel. 30% on DraftKings. He is 6,200. I understand why he's getting that ownership. He is the best projected guy for me in that area, and I understand why it's happening because your alternatives below him are Steven Brault, Gerardo, Zimmerman, and Ross Detweiler, and that doesn't exactly get me excited to play any DFS today. 30% feels like a little too much for him. He's not that kind of guy, and I think that the Mets are probably, as a team, better than Svali is as a pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's pretty decent. He has made 4 starts in the majors so far this year and has a decent strikeout percentage. He's been okay overall. He was good at AAA, had about a 25% strikeout percentage in 8 starts with like a 6% walk percentage. He's been fine, and the salary is affordable. The issue is just that the Mets really don't strike out a lot, and he's a guy who's getting a lot more ownership than he otherwise would because of the lack of other options. And whenever that's the case, like I don't mind rostering popular pitchers because pitchers are just easier to project than hitters are on a game-to-game basis. But I do start to become concerned when a pitcher's ownership skyrockets, more so because of who isn't around him than because of anything to do with him. And that's when I start to be willing to take risks on some other guys that are much lower owned, or look to some leverage stacks, especially because the Mets do have pretty good hitters with Rosario, Alonso, Conforto, Ramos, Davis, all hitting the top 6. Joe Panik's a sub 10% strikeout guy, which obviously hurts Svali as well. So I do think Savali is a good point per dollar option. I'm sure I'll be getting to him in lineups, but again, it's just not with a ton of confidence because I think this matchup is tough. And I think the reason that people are getting him so heavily has a lot more to do with who's not on the slate than with him.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. Like, what do you think Aaron Savali's ownership is if we take Mike Montgomery from yesterday and put him on this slate?
Right.
20% less than it is now?
If you throw Svali on yesterday's slate facing the Mets, so you just make Adam Plutko Aaron Svali yesterday, and you still have Musgrove and Hauser and Montgomery. Svali comes in at 8%, maybe.
Yeah,
like he'd be higher owned than Plutko was, but he wouldn't be popular.
Nope. So to me, I would rather have Mets Bats than Svali. I'm clearly going to have Svali. I hope in like the 10 to 15% range with Mets Bats coming in north of the field. They are at 2% on DK. Highest owned guy is Michael Conforto at 4. I'm not going to have much of a problem getting over that number. I would just rather have the Mets. It feels like a better play today.
Yeah, I don't even want to say like I'd rather have them. I just think that there's a better chance that I'm overweight on the Mets than that I'm overweight on Savali.
I think I'm more likely to win something today being heavier on the Mets than with the field on Savali.
Sure.
Let's talk about your boy Syndergaard. He's kind of got the opposite problem. 31% on Yahoo, 8 on FanDuel, 11 on DraftKings. He is 10,300 on DK, smack dab between Mike Soroka and Erman Marquez. I don't have a ton of interest in Syndergaard here for the first time in a while. Is today a Syndergaard day for you?
No. The only site where I have interest would be Yahoo, where he's $41.
Yeah.
But even there, he's the same salary as Erman Marquez, which makes it tough because I think Marquez is a little bit better. The working in Syndergaard's favor is that he's averaging 6.4 innings per start this season. He has the second best barrels per batted ball percentage, so he's doing a really good job of limiting quality contact. But when you're talking about a pitcher as expensive as Syndergaard is, run prevention only gets you so far. And it's not a good matchup against a Cleveland team that is above average offensively and difficult to strike out. The Indians lose their designated hitter, but it's still not a great matchup. I don't anticipate getting to him on DraftKings or FanDuel. Yahoo, $41 is certainly reasonable, especially because it's $22 less expensive than Gerrit Cole. So you can get completely different offenses.
Yeah, I'm with you, though. I do prefer Marquez to Syndergaard, even at the Yahoo spot.
Yeah.
And at less ownership,
and I prefer
too.
Soroka to both.
On Yahoo? Soroka's 43 on
yes.
Yahoo. Okay. I prefer Marquez to both in that scenario. But either way, we're splitting hairs. Indians Bats against Syndergaard. 9th in ownership on FanDuel, 4th on DK, although that is essentially just Kevin Plawecki at 2,200.
There's a couple good values on DraftKings. Ramirez, 4,200. Lindor, 4,400. The thing that I think is really appealing about the Indians and that gives them upside, especially if they're going to be basically unowned, it's not that you expect them to go out there and hit a bunch of home runs off Syndergaard, but Lindor, Allen, Ramirez, these guys will all run. And Syndergaard can't hold runners to save his life. So if these guys get on base, they're priced down for this matchup. But if they get on base, you're still looking at a 5 to 10 point bonus every time they get to first base. So it is a pretty high upside spot. It's just a low probability spot.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that I'm going to have much on the Indian side. Just other teams that I like. 4-run implied total is really just not appealing either. But the Mets will be what I'm looking for today, particularly Michael Conforto. Anything else for you here?
Nope.
Braves and Marlins, 5.8 run implied total for the Braves, 3.7 for the Marlins, 71% chance to win for Atlanta. Mike Soroka, as we mentioned, going for the Braves. Sandy Alcantara going for the Marlins. Soroka, 21% owned on Yahoo, 12 on FanDuel, 15 on DK. It's nice to see Mike Soroka get to 10K. Certainly a deserved price tag.
This is probably the first slate that I've actually liked Soroka.
Yeah.
I said to you before the show that I don't think I'm getting to a lot of him, and it actually makes me uncomfortable because I think he's a good play. He's probably been like my least rostered good pitcher this year, just because his salary across the industry has reflected his run prevention abilities more than his strikeout abilities, basically since he was called up. And I don't want to pay for that. But there's a couple things that stand out here. For one, it's not like Syndergaard has a good matchup. Marquez doesn't have a great matchup in that price range either. Soroka's been very good at limiting runs. He gets a lot of ground balls. He doesn't give up a lot of barrels. But while for the season, he has a below average strikeout percentage at like 19.7%, it's weighted down by a 14.7% strikeout percentage against lefties. He's struck out 23.5% of righties. The Marlins have 7 righties in the lineup, including Alcantara. And so it's actually a pretty good strikeout spot, especially when you factor in how much the Marlins strike out too. Their lineup isn't the best for strikeouts today. Starlin Castro, Harold Ramirez, Brian Holiday, all low strikeout guys. No Garrett Cooper, no Jorge Alfaro in the lineup. Does hurt the strikeout percentage, but still a bunch of righties for Soroka. So I'm happy with whatever Soroka I get to. I'm obviously going to prioritize Gerrit Cole over him. I'm going to try and sacrifice a hitter or two just to get to a $12,000 Gerrit Cole. But I do like Soroka a bit more than Syndergaard or Marquez.
Okay, so I have Marquez over both of those guys. Nothing crazy. I assume that I don't really get much of either of those, like any of those 3 guys, all things considered. It's probably just going to be a ton of Cole and then just like stupid amounts of Kenta Maeda, which is going to be a great day. Can't wait. Any Sandy against the Braves? Doesn't feel like the day.
No, it doesn't. He's got a negative park shift. He's got a tough matchup. He's not very good. Like I think that he has the ability to be good in the future, but I feel like that also kind of blinds people to how bad he's been this year. He's got, I think, the highest xFIP out of all qualified starters. He has a lower strikeout percentage than Ariel Jurado. He has a higher walk percentage than Ariel Jurado. As far as current abilities to pitch, he's not very appealing.
No, he is not. Braves Bats, second in ownership on FanDuel, second on DK. Now the FanDuel number is bumped up a little bit because Matt Joyce is priced at 2,100 and 30% ownership. Also owned 30% on Yahoo. How do you feel about them as the second most owned stack?
I'm getting to them on DraftKings, but not as like a top 2 stack. I would say I have them as like a top 5 stack right now. It is a high upside spot because Alcantara isn't very good and the bullpen behind them is even worse. It's a better park for hitting than Miami is as well. So I think that Atlanta is a solid stack. It's just that they're also expensive and getting ownership. So maybe I'll end up with some other teams a little bit more.
Yeah, like if Acuna is already at 12% at 5,900, I'm not sure what else I can do to like wring value out of this.
Right.
I assume I don't have a lot. I'm figuring like in the 5 to 6% range. I'm guessing the Braves will be one of my bigger fades. Not that I'm like happy about it or anything. They're so expensive.
Yeah. In my initial crunch on DraftKings, I have 15 either 5 or 4-man Brave stacks. So like 10% of my 150 lineups are Brave stacks.
Okay. Any Marlins Bats?
Isan Diaz is a good value. He's not a high upside play though. He's 2,200 on FanDuel. He's 2,900 on DraftKings, but I don't think you need to get there.
Cash, if anything, $7 on Yahoo. But
like even there, I would rather get Dozier if I can.
Right. I don't have anything else in this game. Favorite bat?
Freeman. Actually, Albies is 4,600 on DraftKings. Freeman is 5,500. I guess I would lean Freeman or Albies there. On Yahoo, I'd rather have Freeman at 21 than Albies at 20.
Agreed. Albies 3,300 on FanDuel as well.
Yeah.
I would rather have him there than 4,400 for Freeman. Cardinals and Rockies. 4.3 run implied total for the Cards. 3.7 for the Rockies. Miles Michaelis versus Herman Marquez. Michaelis 8% owned on Yahoo, 5 on FanDuel, 13 on DK. Just kind of there. On the Rockies side, Marquez 22, 10, and 8. You have mentioned now that Marquez is a little bit behind Syndergaard and Soroka. Hit me with the reasons why.
I'm ahead of Syndergaard.
You have mentioned before that Marquez is behind Soroka and ahead of Syndergaard. Let me know why.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great matchup against the Cardinals. They're running out a pretty low strikeout lineup. Wong doesn't strike out a lot. Ozuna doesn't strike out a lot. Neither does DeYoung. Neither does Molina. Neither does Edman. Basically, the only strikeouts you're getting in this lineup are Dexter Fowler, Paul Goldschmidt, who obviously is just good, Harrison Bader, and then the pitcher. It is nice that you're getting Marquez outside of Coors. He is one of the more talented pitchers on the slate, but you're paying for it on DraftKings at 10,600, and I don't think I'll really get there. On FanDuel, he's more appealing at 8,800. I certainly like him more than 10,000 for Syndergaard. And then on Yahoo, he's basically the same price as Syndergaard, slightly less expensive than Soroka. So I put him in the middle out of that group.
Okay. It's another spot where I just don't know how much I get to. On a different slate, I like him a lot, but he's just so far behind Gerrit Cole that It makes it almost impossible. He's got half of the projection for me, and that's not an indictment on Marquez. It's just that's how good Gerrit Cole projects to be today.
And he's comparable to Kenta Maeda.
Right. 8% feels about right. I assume I'm in that neighborhood. I'd love to get more on a different day, but it's just today's not that day. Any Michaelis for you? 7,200. Is he an alternative to Maeda? Is he interesting at all?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy about it, but especially on DraftKings at 7,200, it's kind of a dead range there. Like Maeda's 8,100. You have Woj at 6,800, who we've already talked about, has some upside, but is terrifying. Michaelis is kind of the opposite. Like, he doesn't really have upside. He doesn't have good strikeout stuff. He's average at preventing runs, but he's got a pretty decent matchup against the Rockies, who have a 3.8 implied run total. They've been absolute garbage outside of Coors Field all season long. So as a point per dollar option, I think Michaelis is fine. He just has a limited ceiling. And so my assumption is I'll probably end up like around the field.
Yeah. Same page. It's just, he's a very underwhelming option. He's underwhelming always.
Yeah, but normally it's easy for me just not to roster him. I'm not sure if that'll be the case tonight.
It's a different slate. Rockies, unowned across the industry. Not a single person, all three sites with an ownership north of 1. Do you have any interest in Rockies bats against Michaelis?
Not a ton. It's obviously a park downgrade for them, and they're still expensive is the problem. Like, I would love to get the Blackman and Story and Arenado, but I don't really want to pay the salaries for them that I would have to, given how many other good hitting options there are on the slate.
Would you rather play Charlie Blackman or Ronald Acuna today?
I have in that first crunch on DraftKings, I have 15% Acuna, and I have, it appears to be 0% Blackman. So I think Acuna.
Fair enough. Cardinals Bats. Basically also unowned. They're picking up a little bit more love on DraftKings, but nobody in double digits, nobody higher than 6%. Are you looking to target anybody against Marquez?
Not particularly. Their salaries are okay, but I do have a lot of respect for Marquez, and I just think there's better options.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't have much interest at all in the Cardinals. Honestly, I have more interest in the Rockies than I do the Cardinals, but I don't really have interest in either team. It's a very tiny run total for today.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, the Rockies, I think, give you a better chance at winning a tournament because they're going to knock out a pretty popular pitcher if they have a big game. But I think both sides are pretty low probability, and I think that the Rockies are low probability enough where I'm just not going to really get to them.
Hard for me to disagree. I'm going to take a look at the top stack tool, just see if Cardinals coming in over-owned. Rockies coming in as an excellent value with no ownership, but also chances of being a top stack just 2.7% of the time. Not quite the best we can be looking for. We have 3 more games to go and a lot of time to do it, so time to give a little bit of a plug. It's time for everybody to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel so you know when we go live. Coming up immediately after this, we will have Jake Hari and Chris Spags doing live before lock from 6 to 7. But if you want to, go to awesemo_com, our Twitter handle. Check out the pinned tweet. Our ownership projections are free today. So if you want to get an idea of what we talk about basically every show as a very large piece of what we're doing, that information is free today. Go to the pinned tweet at awesemo_com. Follow the account. Obviously, that would be smart. And then you can know every single day what our featured free content is. But head on over and click the link. Get the free ownership projections. Figure out what we're talking about. It's great stuff. Highly recommended. If we didn't have these ownership projections, I would be significantly worse. That easy.
Yep.
Time to talk about the big guy. Astros and Tigers. 81% chance to win for Houston. I mean, come on. What is the likelihood that Houston loses a game when they're a minus 500 favorites? What could possibly happen here? Gerrit Cole going for the Astros. Jordan Zimmerman going for the Tigers. I think I have Gerrit Cole's projection 5 times Jordan Zimmerman right now. Cole, 60% owned on Yahoo, 29 on FanDuel, 39 on DraftKings. Is there a limit to the amount of Gerrit Cole you'd be willing to have today?
Nope. Got him at about 53% in my first crunch on DraftKings, and the only reason it's that low is because the cheap SP2s suck, and I don't have anyone that I want to have tons and tons of. But any Gerrit Cole I can get, I'm happy with. I have him projected 8 points higher, 7.5 points higher than Scherzer, who is my second highest scoring pitcher on the slate. I just don't think it's really close. I said yesterday I thought Justin Verlander against Detroit was one of, if not the best pitching matchup I could remember ever. and Cole's better than Scherzer or than Verlander is. So better strikeout numbers, even better at run prevention. It's just a great spot for Cole. You even got Nico Goodrum is probably the best hitter on the Tigers, but he also has like a 32% strikeout percentage. Got him back in the lineup today. Wasn't in there yesterday. So maybe even a better spot for Cole.
Are there any situations where you would be actively trying to pivot away from Gerrit Cole today? Smaller field tournaments, 3 max, 5? No? Okay.
Nope.
We just always, getting a couple questions. Somebody asked, would y'all play Cole if there are only 4 people in a contest?
So the thing is, and I make that mistake sometimes too. Like yesterday, I played one lineup in the like 555 on DraftKings, and it wasn't even that I was actively avoiding Verlander. It was just that I decided the lineup I liked the most didn't have him. But even there, where ownerships are going to be sharper and they're going to be higher, he was only 54% owned. And when you think about it, like on yesterday's slate, it doesn't apply quite as much today because the SP2s aren't as good as yesterday, but it still applies. That means half the field still is just giving up probably 30 plus points at pitcher, which still gives you a pretty nice advantage. So I think that if I were playing like a 4-man, I would still want to have Cole. Worst case is everyone has him and it doesn't matter. But even if one person in that 4-man doesn't have him, they're playing catch up pretty hard at pitcher.
Yeah, we're on the same spot here. I would play him no matter what. He projects on such a different level to every starter today that there's not really there's no real reason to not have him. There's no one, like, if Max Scherzer is fully healthy, I think we both agree that, Cole is still a massively better play. You can talk me into going to Scherzer in like a 10-person field in that case if I knew that everybody was on Cole. But other than that, you have to have a very completely different night to not have Cole and be in that contest. I love it.
Right.
I hope that I get a ton. Like, I'm hoping for 60 or more.
Right. Like I will be happy with any amount of Cole. The more Cole I can get, the better.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned earlier in chat today, Verlander lost yesterday without ever allowing a base runner.
Wow, that's pretty insane.
Yeah. So he never pitched from the stretch.
I'll say, I know you got the complete game bonus.
Yeah. 9 innings, 2 hits, however, 11 Ks.
Wait, I thought you said he didn't allow a base runner.
2 solo home runs.
Oh, okay.
There was never anybody on the bases.
I was trying to figure out how that happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never anybody on the bases. That can't happen all that often. Any Jordan Zimmerman?
Yes. On DraftKings?
Yeah.
Not a lot, but he's 4,800 with no ownership. Brutal matchup. Like it's not a thing that I expect to work out, but across 150 lineups, I'll have a little bit of Jordan Zimmerman.
So will I. Nothing to write home about. Nothing that I'm advocating for. Just it is simply a symptom of 150 lineups.
Yep.
So Astros stack, getting a little bit of ownership. Nothing too crazy. I want to double check something first. So give me 1 second. No, I think I assumed I was right. They're expensive. I mean, like, basically everybody is just 5K now. I think that it's incredibly problematic to get to an Astros stack now that Abraham Toro is projected to hit 7th and does not, that I can see, have a salary across any site. So they are now short a dude, and they can desperately use an extra guy that isn't 5K. What do you want to do with the Astros against Zimmerman? Because I'd love to get them, but they're a tough 5-man.
Yeah, I'd like to get there, and I'm getting some, but they're not one of my highest owned stacks, and that's one of the reasons. You're missing a hitter in the order. Toro is a good hitter, but he's not in the player pool, so he doesn't do us any good. It limits the number. It limits the ways that you can stack the Astros, so it's a little bit harder to be contrarian with your Astros stacks, and it also makes it, when you had like a Jack Mayfield or a Miles Straw in that spot instead, you had a value guy that you could place in there with the very expensive Alvarez, Bregman, Springer, etc. But now you lose that guy. So it's tough to get to Houston. It's just a spot where it's clearly a high probability spot, but people will get to the Astros because of how good they are and because they have a 6+ implied run total. And with there being 17 other offenses on the slate that are just a bit easier to stack and come at decent ownership. I think that I probably won't be getting the tons of Houston.
My intention is to get like an overwhelming amount of one-off 2-man, 3-mans of the awesome parts of Houston and just soak up as much ownership as I possibly can, because Jordan Zimmerman is all kinds of bad and they should bludgeon him, as evidenced by a 5.6 run implied total or more, depending on where you're looking. I mean, they have 5 bats on Yahoo that are $27. And one of them isn't George Springer.
Yeah, it's insane.
So I'm happy. I hope that I can get north of the field on some of these Astros guys, because they're certainly bats that I want to have, but they are problematically priced. And Toro being in that lineup is really a wrench in the plans of trying to stack this team up, because they're almost impossible to get to with Cole. Any Tigers bats? Who are you going to pick to hit a solo dong off of Gerrit Cole today?
Hicks.
Okay. It was funny when Jake and I were on yesterday. Jake was just like, somehow I ended up with like 17% Ronnie Rodriguez on FanDuel, and I was like, oh, that seems like a really spectacular play. Sure shit, Ronnie Rodriguez dong.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, got bailed out. I can't advocate for a single Tiger. They have no ownership. They shouldn't have ownership. I don't even know what to say. They're like a AAA team.
Yep.
3 more games to go here. White Sox and Rangers. So this game made no sense to Jake and I this morning. Couldn't figure out what angle to take on it. Let's see if we can get some thoughts here. 5.2 runs for the White Sox, 5.4 for the Rangers. A little bit of a coin flip. Ross Detweiler for Chicago. Ariel Jurado going for the Rangers. Jurado is at 17% ownership at $5K on DraftKings. I don't know if I want the White Sox offense, the Rangers offense, Jurado. I'm pretty sure I don't want Ross Detweiler, but it's just like 2 really bad teams and 2 really bad pitchers going against each other, and I don't know what's supposed to win in that.
I'm getting to all parts of this game.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I expected to be. I have no idea.
So I haven't redone lineups since Jimenez scratched, so I assume my White Sox exposure will go down since I'm losing one of the hitters I like the most.
Yeah.
I'm getting on DraftKings a lot of $5,000 Jurado. That's the only site where I think Jurado is really useful. He's more expensive on Yahoo than Tanner Roark. I'd rather just take Tanner Roark if I have to. But on DraftKings at $5K, he's in a different pricing tier than Aaron Svali and Asher and those guys. So I'm getting to a lot of him, just hoping that he doesn't totally blow up. He's not a good pitcher, but he's also not the worst pitcher on the slate. And he's one of the cheapest.
He's not the worst pitcher in his own game. That's helpful.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm getting some of that. And then I'm getting less, but also getting some Detweiler just because he's 4,600. Like, I'd rather roster Detweiler against the Rangers than Zimmerman against the Astros.
Yeah.
The Rangers don't have a lot of good bats against left-handed pitching in their lineup. It's been an issue like all season long from a DFS standpoint because they face a lot of bad lefties, but you never really know who you want to get to. The only guys on the on the Rangers with a WRC plus above 100 against lefties since 2017 are Calhoun and Pence. Everyone else is below that. The Shields has struck out 24% of the time. Forsythe is at 24%. Odor's at 27%. So, it's just not the best lineup. But I'm also getting to Texas as one of my highest owned stacks on DraftKings right now because we have them projected as the second highest top stack percentage, but their ownership doesn't reflect that. You get a really good value second baseman in Nick Solak, who projects as a pretty decent hitter. You have decent value with the Shields leading off and with Andrus at shortstop. So getting to a lot of Texas too. Just kind of getting all parts of this game because all parts are pretty bad.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen. I assume I come in under the field on the Rangers. 27% Elvis Andrus is the projection right now. He's at 33 on Yahoo.
What's Nick Solak's DraftKings ownership projection right now?
16.
Okay, I have 31.
You have 31?
Yeah.
Okay. How much Odor do you have?
12.
Okay. Wouldn't you rather flip that?
No.
Okay.
Solak's 600 less, and I think probably a better hitter than Odor, and he has the platoon advantage.
That's fair. I mean, how long do we really think Ross Detweiler's in this game?
Well, yeah. For the 10% of my teams that have Detweiler, hopefully a while.
Depending on how the rest of those lineups are doing.
Right, exactly. I have no idea what I'm rooting for in this game.
That's how we were this morning. I couldn't figure out what was like the obvious thing to like. I could make a case for all four sides of this.
This game's the perfect example of how realistically, if you're playing DFS, you're not really actually trying to like say who is. You don't care as much about like quote unquote good plays as you do about just getting your exposures in a way that gives you a good chance to win a tournament.
Yeah, it's
like there's just so many different ways this game can go, but because of the pricing, there's a really good chance that one of the pitchers is really useful or one of the stacks is really useful.
Yeah, I expect it to be 5-4 and everything sucks.
Right,
just to make it really good. Favorite bat in the game.
Factoring in price, Solak. I don't even know the guy's name.
The other second baseman.
Yeah.
Not Odor. Oh, man. The Rangers should get his brother, and they should just get two Rugnan Odors in there at the same time. Favorite bat for me is... God, it might be Jimenez, and he's not even playing.
Good God, I have 24% Heineman right now.
Sounds like a winning lineup to me.
I'm guessing these are a lot of Gerrit Cole lineups.
I should hope so.
55.6% of my Scott Heineman lineups have Gerrit Cole. That's actually lower than I expected.
That's way lower than I would have thought it was. Look, man, you got to jam in $3,400 Scott Heineman to make sure that you don't get Gerrit Cole. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I see nothing wrong with that strategy. Oh my God. My favorite bat is probably Odor because he's not owned. God, this game sucks. A's and Yankees. Oh, God. 4.7 for the A's, 4.8 for the Yanks. Coin flip game. Tanner Roark, Masahiro Tanaka. Neither guy really getting much love. Roark at 12% on Yahoo. Neither guy is over double digits on any other site. Do you have a preference between the two? Do you want to go to Tanaka? Lineup looking not great for Tanaka right now.
On DraftKings, I don't have interest in either one. I have like 3 Tanaka lineups and 0 Roark lineups. The only spot that I really find pitching in this game interesting is Roark at $27 on Yahoo.
Yep.
Yahoo priced up like all the cheap guys. They made it really, really tough to get pitching there. But Roark, well, he's not a great pitcher. It's 68 degrees. It's a good pitcher's park. He's probably facing a pretty balanced lineup, but a lot of righties at the top, and he's actually got pretty good strikeout stuff against righties. So it's obviously a tough matchup, but at $27, like Roark's just not in the same category of pitcher, I don't think, is like an Ariel Urado or some of the other guys down there.
Yeah, I won't be getting to Roark on DK. 8,500 is silly. Tanaka at 7,500, I just don't really need. I'd clearly rather have Kenta Maeda. I'd probably rather have Miles Michaelis, just given how bad the Rockies are outside of cores. There's no real need for me. The park helps, but it's not like it's great for strikeouts either. Ultimately, like I just don't really need pitching here. And I probably don't need much offense, but if the Yankees are going to go completely underowned with only Aaron Judge in double digits at 16%, like Gary Sanchez is at 7% ownership right now. I know he's not like the best catcher in the world, but I feel like I need to own him more than 7%. What do you think about the Yanks today?
I'm getting to more than 7% Gary Sanchez. The price tag is just really appealing. I think he's one of the best catcher plays on the slate. Overall, I'm not getting to tons of Yankees. They're looking like kind of like a middling stack for me right now. The park's not great. The weather's not great. The matchup's not great, but they are pretty inexpensive, especially on DraftKings.
They have enough power that I don't get too scared off of this park.
Right.
Like even these knockoff Yankees, like Ford and Tauchman and stuff, are still powerful hitters. I'm probably going to be over the field on the Yankees if they're just on. Like they are unowned on FanDuel. 5% Gregorius, 4% Judge, nobody else. Meanwhile, Judge and Sanchez are 20% on Yahoo. I like the Yankees more on FanDuel. I expect them to be one of the teams that I'm most over the field on, and that's mostly just because the field isn't there. A's bats. Chris Davis donged yesterday. Maybe he's breaking out of it.
Yeah, maybe.
Get himself a slump buster.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a pretty decent value, but outfield stack too. I'm getting to more Davis than anyone else on Oakland.
As expected. I've got some interest in Matt Olson. I don't get the sense that I'll have a ton of the A's, but I'd be happy to like run in place with their ownership, you know. Other than Chris Davis being at 16, like if the A's really were at 3%, you know, just straight line down, I'd be happy to get 4 or 5. Tanaka has been a bit of a mess lately. Favorite bat in the game?
Sanchez.
Okay. Yeah, what same page. What terrible take from you. Final game. One last time, hit that like button, everybody. Let's try to build up a nice base of likes because it's going to be Jake and Chris after this, and I doubt you're going to want to hit that thumbs up. 5.6 runs for the Dodgers, 3.8 for the Jays, 68% chance to win for LA. Kenta Maeda going for the Dodgers, Jacob Wagsback going for the Jays. Chadwick, I understand what Mike Tauchman's stats are. I'm just saying that he doesn't have the name cachet like some of the other Yankees. He's just like some of these other guys are a bit more popular to the public eye. That's all the joke is, man. Still going to play him. It's cool. Maeda and Wagsback. Thought Wagsback was going yesterday. Ultimately, doesn't matter at all. We're not playing him here. At least I'm not playing him here. I can't imagine you won up against the Dodgers. Let's talk about Chalk Maeda. 36% owned on Yahoo, 16 on FanDuel, 35 on DraftKings, where he's $8,100. I'm happy to have him. The structure is going to be a little bit weird. I'm not entirely sure who he pairs best with, but I certainly see the utility in wanting Kenta Maeda in this spot. What about you?
Yeah, that's the biggest question for me. First off, on a totally different note, I made an adjustment in my spreadsheet and I'm down to 15% Scott Heineman, which makes me a lot happier. But back to things that matter. Yeah, like Maeda, I have right now as my third highest owned pitcher on DraftKings behind Cole and Urado. But it's a roster construction thing. Like obviously I would rather have Kenta Maeda than Ariel Urado, but I would rather have Cole than Kenta Maeda. I think that it is it's a good matchup against Toronto. They have a 3.7 implied run total. Maeda's just flat out dominant against righties and not so much against lefties. And while Toronto probably will have a balanced lineup, most of the good hitters in the lineup, Bichette, Guerrero, Grichuk, Hernandez, are all right-handed. There's probably only going to be one hitter in the lineup that has above average numbers against right-handed pitching, and that's going to be either Smoke or Tellez, whichever's in the lineup. You also get the pitcher instead of designated hitters, so that's a bump. And for everything that's made about the short leash that Dave Roberts has on Kenta Maeda, he's thrown at least 87 pitches in 4 out of his last 5 starts. And the one start where he didn't, he gave up 5 runs in 2 2/3 innings. So he was pulled because he was pitching like terribly. It had nothing to do with Dave Roberts. So I think that those concerns are probably overstated, especially because he's 8,100 on DraftKings. He's in that same ballpark on FanDuel and Yahoo. So you're getting a very reasonable price. So the only reason that Maeda is not in more lineups for me is that it's tough to pair him with other guys that I like.
Yeah, it's an odd spot for a build today, given the rest of the pitching talent.
Yeah, like
really
if I look at my
one of those low
lineups on DraftKings right now, 38% are with Urado, 28% are with Svali, 21% are with Michaelis, 4% with Cole. And then, like one with Tanaka, one with Woj, one with Zimmerman, and one with Brault.
How much with Scott Heineman?
With Scott Heineman?
Not a serious question. I don't give a shit.
13%.
There you go. I had something legitimate I wanted to say, but I couldn't help myself. I had to jam in a Scott Heineman joke. I think. Oh yeah, Jake, if you're listening, Zoom call. Just FYI.
You know what's going to be really, really amazing is I'm going to make some sort of adjustment between now and lock where I get no Scott Heineman. He's going to homer, and then like 12 people are going to tweet at me, and I'm just going to be so pissed off.
You heard that, guys. Make sure you tweet at ShipMyMoneyDFS if Scott Heineman homers. And if we're lucky, he will not be on him as much as he is right now, and we can really put the screws to him, because that's what we're looking for. Let's talk Dodgers bats here against Wags back before we close this out and give top stacks. They are 4th in ownership on FanDuel, 5th on DraftKings. A lot of it coming to Jock Peterson. He's 39% owned on Yahoo. I don't know what they're doing, but I want to get myself some Dodgers here, and there's not really a limit to the amount I want, outside of Will Smith, who I have no interest in whatsoever.
Yeah, I like the Dodgers too. They are getting a little bit more ownership than I'd like, at least as of the last time I updated my spreadsheet on DraftKings. But I'm still getting there. They are in a good spot against Jake Wagsback. They obviously have a lot of really good hitters. There's a ton of power in the lineup. So, yeah, I like the Dodgers. They're coming in as right now like a top between 5 and 10 stack for me.
Ooh, that's not as high as I would have expected.
Well, so basically, like right now, it's just like tons of Tampa, tons of Texas, a bunch of Atlanta, and then kind of spread out between like the Dodgers, the Indians, the White Sox, the Nats.
I think they're probably going to be. It wouldn't shock me if they're my most owned stack. Maybe number 2 behind Tampa. I love these lefty bats against Wagsback. The park, it's perfect for the park. Peterson, Muncy, Bellinger, Seager, even Beatty. I want all of it. Jokes aside for this moment right now, I mean, it's really hard to play Will Smith at $5,400.
Yeah, no, it is. He's actually a good hitter. He's a good hitting prospect, but he's really expensive.
Not to go too crazy. He's not really that good of a hitting prospect per scouting grades, but that's neither here nor there. He's got like a 30 hit tool.
Does he really?
Yeah.
I thought he was actually good.
He's got like average power. He's got an arm on him, apparently. More defense than offense. Per Fangraphs. I don't know. I'm not a scout, obviously. Let me just make sure I'm looking at the right Will Smith. Yeah, 35 hit tool, 40 projected. 55 game power is the projection, but apparently 40 now. So I don't know. We'll see. I want to get a bunch of Dodgers.
335 ISO in the PCL.
Yeah, which it should be. I mean, that's high one way or the other, but if you're not slugging in the PCL, you're not going to slug anywhere.
Steamer projects him for a 96 WRC plus, but a 222 ISO.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, that's what you're looking for out of a catcher. If you can get the pop, that's what you want. You could be the next Mike Zunino.
It's Mike Zunino. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
There we go. Mike Zunino is definitely better than Gary Sanchez. All right, top stacks, go.
Tampa Bay and Texas.
I felt like you were going to say another name there. Give me Astros and Dodgers, although I don't know how I get to the Astros, but we'll figure it out. Hit the like button, but stick around. We're not going anywhere. Live Before Lock coming up next on this stream. You don't have to change anything. Just hang out. Jake and Chris will be with you guys shortly. Best of luck, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Boys are live.
All right, what's up, guys? We should be starting up now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Awesemo.com Live Before Lock Show. We're taking you through the day's 9-game MLB main slate. Thanks to part of our tag team here with the Deeper Dive guys, our producer, Josh Engelman, right behind the scenes there. We appreciate you, Josh. I know you can hear me right now. But I am here. I'm Chris Spags. Joined by my good buddy, the baseball savant, the snack-like Jake Hari. How are you doing, Jake?
Doing well, man. Second time talking about the slate. And we got Josh producing, so what can be better than this, right?
What can be better? Actually, Jake, you know one thing that could be even better? Living in a world with rake-free daily fantasy, and now we do live in that world. It's all thanks to FantasyDraft.com, the presenting sponsor here of Live Before Lock. So go to FantasyDraft.com right now, the official home of rake-free daily fantasy. Now you can play your favorite contests rake-free on Fantasy Draft, where 100% of the entry fees are paid to contest winners. For a limited time, Fantasy Draft is offering a free 7-day trial on your first $1,000 in rake-free entries. So go to FantasyDraft.com and use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial right now. Jake, rake-free daily fantasy. What is the appeal there for the folks out there who maybe don't know why?
Yeah, it's going to help your long-term ROI if you keep playing these rake-free contests. So Fantasy Draft, great place to do it. They actually track how much you save compared to a 15% or 16% standard rake that you might see on some other sites. So you can actually go into your account and see how much money you're saving. Even if you're not playing high stakes, you might be saving a few dollars every day. It does add up, especially if you're going to be playing DFS, even casually. And with some of these big NFL tournaments coming up, I think now is pretty much a perfect time to get over to Fantasy Draft.
Yeah, they actually have a pretty big, I think, a free roll today going for their, not that they give us part of the ad copy, but they have a free roll for a preseason NFL today. So if you are trying to get your preseason NFL fix, that is one place to go right now. So go to FantasyDraft.com, use that promo code AWESEMO for your free 7-day trial. Your first $1,000 in entries, rake free. All right, Jake, we got a slate here. We got one guy who is going to be standing above the rest here, Mr. Gerrit Cole, we should talk about at pitcher. Obviously, yesterday, Justin Verlander had a really nice day for himself. Unfortunately, did not get a win versus Detroit, then also had a little bitch fit against reporters in Detroit, which is fun. Gerrit Cole has none of those concerns for himself here. He is not a former Tiger. Or actually, he's not a former Tiger, right? That's not, no. He's a former Pirate.
Yeah. Pirate, yeah.
But there's one other one too, right?
Who's that?
Is there one other team for him?
There might have been. I can't remember. I just remember him on the Pirates when I started playing.
Somebody in the chat will tell us, I think, hopefully soon enough, and probably angrily, and be like, you guys don't know he was also briefly on the Rays for like one day. He was a prospect traded for whatever the 2005 version of Tommy Pham. But yeah, let's talk about Gerrit Cole here. He's in a really nice spot here, has better strikeout stuff on the year than Verlander. Obviously getting the same matchup versus Detroit. He looks really good. He projects to have the best raw points. He also projects to have the most ownership on every site today. Going to be very chalky on every single site you're playing. So how are you feeling about Gerrit Cole, Jake? Because I find it hard to get away from him, and even with his ownership high, I'm above the field.
Yeah, well, he is projecting as well as any pitcher we've had, I think, the entire season. So now, like, he's just way above really anyone on the site right now, on all sites. And, like, yeah, he's expensive, but you do have some cheap stacks and pretty easy ways to get different with not only hitting, but there's some SP2s I think that I'm playing more of the field than as well. So Gerrit Cole, just the best option, I think, by a very wide margin. I'm over the field right now, almost double actually on DraftKings that I'm looking at right now.
So you're not going with your favorite Ronnie Rodriguez loading up against him?
No, that was a one-time thing, probably a mistake in my sheet. That was on FanDuel. I think Detroit was just absolutely min salary, like across the board yesterday or something against Verlander. So I got that fish take in there. I don't even remember if I said that on the show or if it was to Josh afterwards, but I was like, wow, this isn't going to be good. And then he homered, and I still didn't make money, so it didn't matter. But it's just one of those things, like when you're doing this quick, it's hard. Like sometimes you miss guys that you're heavily exposed to that you weren't expecting to be exposed to at all.
Yeah, that does happen sometimes, especially when you're trying to get leverage on certain pitchers. And Verlander does give up power. Not so much the case for Gerrit Cole. I mean, he has given up a 4% on run rate on the year, just a 149 ISO overall going back to last season. The strikeout rate 37%, swinging strike rate 16%, just a 1 whip and a 2.8 xFIP. And pretty much all these numbers are better than Verlander's. So I really do think it's a spot where I feel comfortable with Gerrit Cole, and I think you have to. And the implied total is even lower for him today. So that is something for him. Even though the money line, I feel like, is not as high. They must have learned their lesson after actually just winning so much money from people betting Detroit, or betting Houston, rather. Yeah,
not often you see a minus, 500 favorite. And then not often you ever see it 2 days in a row. It's wild here. But it's not like Verlander was the reason they lost yesterday. They just couldn't generate any offense. And, maybe they can't hear, but that doesn't mean that Cole's not going to go strike out double digits.
So what is the approach here? I mean, we've kind of talked about it in the deeper dive. Josh and Adam talk about it at some length as well, about how it really doesn't make sense to get away from Cole too much. And you are kind of leaving what's likely a free 30 points on the table that are going to be a little bit harder to find elsewhere. But if you have that money, Jake, and you're trying to spend elsewhere, where are you going? Are you willing to go to Max Scherzer? I got some lines with Kenta Maeda as the number one pitcher. Really didn't get much Soroka, but I think Soroka is a decent pivot down, even though he really is nowhere near the upside. So what would be the move for you if you weren't going to go to Cole?
Right. Soroka, just the little bit of a lack of upside, as Josh and I also detailed on the strategy show this morning. Then the deeper dive guys went over it. So that's my only concern with him. 2K is pretty significant. So I'm still going to get to some Soroka as an SP1. Obviously can't really get there as an SP2 with Cole. I don't even think you can stack a team like that on DraftKings. So you mentioned Maeda. He's probably the guy I'm getting to the most in the mid tier. He was the guy I was getting to right before I crunched before we came on here. I don't really love it, but he is at a decent price. He's also a big favorite now, not minus 500, but minus 235 about right now. And he's priced down just a little bit at 8,100. So the strikeouts could still be there for him. Not a very unfavorable lineup. Plus, he's going to get Wags back in there as well. It's always helpful to have the pitcher spot. I like Maeda.
I don't really like Maeda. I landed there a lot more than I thought I would. I figured I would be able to come under the field on him and do that comfortably. I really couldn't make that happen today because there weren't a lot of pitchers I like as pivots to him, and going down cheap. Like I have enough Svali, I have enough Ariel Hirado. I'm sure we'll talk about both those guys as we go. I even got some Asher Wojciechowski still above the field on Maeda, and I don't love it because this Toronto lineup, and I think the thing when you look at it on the year, like it's still, I mean, it does have power for them on the year. They have a 195 ISO overall this season going against right-handed pitching, but also that strikeout rate, which is pretty high. The thing, though, is this lineup now, because they have guys like Bichette and Biggio and Guerrero in there, who's, these guys haven't been there all season long. Derek Fisher as well has been pretty decent. You have, what is this? You have 7 guys above a 205 ISO versus right-hand pitching in that Toronto lineup. And that really does scare me because Maeda, even though not a big power pitcher, he does keep the ball down fairly well, does get good soft contact. It's a lot of power for a guy who's going to be this chalky. So I guess, do you have any reservations at all with Maeda? Because it is a lot of ownership on him.
He hasn't been like spectacular this season, and there still are a few lefties in the lineup, like you mentioned. He's just kind of, like we'll talk about with some of these other guys, he's just kind of the best of a not great tier, at least not a deep tier. So I don't like the ownership, but I think the spot is okay. I don't think it's a super below average spot or anything like that. It's just tough to stomach 40% ownership almost on a 2-pitcher site. I guess my concerns aren't with really Maeda himself. It's just the ownership. And right now I'm actually not even above the field on Maeda. But he's just the guy that I'm going to by default in this range.
So yeah, with Maeda too, I mean, does the length of time that he's pitching generally scare you at all? Because he's only had one game over 4 innings pitched. I guess, over 5 in the last 8, 9, it looks like 8 games. I don't know. Like there's so many things that give me pause with him, and I'm playing him because, like you mentioned, he is kind of the best guy out of a weak tier. But it is a thing where I don't really feel comfortable with it, and I'm just wondering, I guess, like how comfortable should people feel given the fact that he is going to be so highly owned?
I think it is like you bring up some valid concerns about him not going deep into games, but you also have to look at his pitch count and just seeing he's never a guy that's going 100 all that often with Dave Roberts as the manager, but he's also struggled. So it's a good thing and it's a bad thing because he couldn't get past, you mentioned 4 or 5 innings oftentimes, but he threw 91, 61, and then 92, 95 pitches his last 4 starts. So those numbers to me just say that if things go well, he's going to be able to go 5 or 6 innings pretty easily here. And then obviously the win equity as well. So I'm not that concerned, more concerned about Maeda than I usually am about his pitch count, especially for this price.
Okay, that's fair. See, I guess that's kind of assuage some of my concerns with him, but it's just something where I don't love that I'm there, and I feel like now I'm really poking holes on it now that we're doing the show. But it is a spot where it does feel like it's hard to avoid on DK today, and most of the other sites as well, because he's pretty much the number 2 pitcher on every site you're going to play on today. How about Aaron Svali, who is the other chalk pitcher of note, particularly on DK, not so much owned on FanDuel and Yahoo, where his price isn't as necessary. He's been good in a limited sample size in the majors. Going against the Mets, though, who are getting 4.5 implied runs. You have a couple of hitters here with really big power in Alonso and Conforto, and just some competent guys who don't strike out much, like Joe Panic is probably going to extend some pitch counts for him. I don't mind Svali, and I'm with the field actually a little bit above it right now, just because I couldn't get away from him as much as I wanted to. But how are you feeling about Svali here, getting a good projection going into the Mets stadium?
Yeah, I'm playing way more of this guy than I thought I would this morning. Now his ownership has come down, I think, a little bit since this morning. So I thought it would actually go up. Like I thought he might be 35, 40% owned. Right now, it looks like he's going to stick in this 30-ish range. I think he's fine. He's been good against the bad teams, and he's actually been okay against in bad matchups as well. So I was looking through some of his game logs. I know he's had matchups with Minnesota, I think Texas, Detroit. I can't find him here right now, but like he's been solid against the teams you would expect him to be solid against. He's been okay against the teams you would expect him to struggle against. And here it's not like a spectacular matchup against the Mets, but it is a pretty low implied total here in today's MLB. And it is a pitcher-friendly park. He's just the best option in this range, I think. If you look at the projections on the site, you can see that he is by far the best value in this range for Alex.
Yeah, according to Alex's projections, he's the best value on the slate and also the only one above that 2x value threshold we're trying to get for all these pitchers for the most part. The only guy who comes close would be, there are guys who come close, but even that really not that close. But Brault and Gerardo just behind that 2x value threshold and that price point. So yeah, I'm there. It doesn't feel great, but he has kept the ball down pretty well. Again, he's only faced 93 batters in the majors this year, but he has a .082 ISO. That is one good sign. Also hasn't been barreled at all yet, which these things seem likely to regress, but it is for what it's worth right now. And a 24% K rate as well. So there's been some signs of life for Svali, but chalk Svali does seem like a scary spot going against these powerful Mets hitters.
Yeah, definitely not one. Again, not one that I feel comfortable with. The only thing I feel comfortable with tonight, or I guess the thing I feel least comfortable with tonight is anyone not named Gerrit Cole for pitching. Like hitting, I really like where I'm at for hitting. I feel like I'm getting all the teams I want to get to, all the teams I should be getting to. Pitching is a different story because it's basically just Cole and then whoever fits.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess let's talk about the cheap price. Actually, let's talk about Max Scherzer. Let's go back up top here because he's a guy who is coming back in there and people may have some curiosity. People may think he's a viable pivot to Gerrit Cole. There's some concerns about pitch count. I know that Adam and Josh discussed that he has like an 80 pitch count. The reporters are reporting, and they also believe, which I think I would share their worldview, that there's a decent chance it goes closer to 90, but it's hard to imagine him pitching into the hundreds, coming back with some back issues and side issues and muscle issues. He's got a lot of issues going on. How are you feeling about Max Scherzer? And I guess, will you have any of him? He's going to be 7% owned on DK, pretty comparably unknown everywhere else.
No, I don't think I'm going to get to Scherzer tonight. It's just a night where he's not necessary because you have Cole here. And sure, Cole could get blown up, but so could any pitcher. And if you're not getting full Max Scherzer, you're almost paying full price for him in a tough strikeout matchup anyways. So 75, 80, whether it's 90 pitches, even 100 pitches, I would still play Cole straight up against him here. Did you say he was getting ownership?
No, not getting much ownership. Okay. Under 10% everywhere, it looks like.
Okay, we just got an ownership update 1 minute ago, and I believe the ownership projections are free today. It's Thursday.
They are.
Right?
They are indeed.
Yeah. Let's see where he ended up. Yeah, he's easily in single digits right now. And that's where I think he should be. I don't think there's a reason to play him tonight on DraftKings, at least.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if he were the Soroka price point, but even that, I feel like just knowing that he has a pitch count and knowing that Cole is not that far away price-wise with where he is right now, it's sort of hard to get there. And yeah, I'm with you on it. Just felt like we had to talk about him because people may try to get a little cute with their lineups today, and I think that is one approach that I think I would just want to avoid, and I would go to Cole. Let me just double check the ownership for Scherzer. Yeah, all right. Yeah, actually went down on DK and I think elsewhere too. So yeah, so Max Scherzer not looking like a viable option. So you are really standing alone if you are trying to go there today, it looks like. And as Jake mentioned, the ownership projections are free. I'm actually going to drop a link in the YouTube chat right now so you guys can check them out because they are free and you might as well take a look, play along with us with all the data. And of course, if you want to get it every single day, now is the time to use that promo code Live Before Lock for half off your first month of Osmo Plus. Get all the ownership projections and the player projections and the deep dive column, the lineup builder, the top stacks tool, a lot of things that we all use to build lineups every day and also speed up the process of research. So go check that out right now at osmo.com/join. Use the promo code Live Before Lock. All right, Jake, who else in the cheap pitching tier? We're just jumping around, but these are the guys who seem the most relevant. So Svali's going to have a ton of ownership. People in the chat, one guy who is one of the regulars here, I think Tyler, is that who was saying it, is going to have 100%. Ariel Gerardo, who was a guy that I forced in there as well. There's some other cheap guys as well. If you want to go to Ross Detweiler, who's been terrible, he is going to be leveraged against a not great Texas team, who I do like as hitters, but we'll talk about that later. Who are you getting in the cheap tier besides Svali?
Yeah, man. So all those names you mentioned, Ariel Gerardo, Ross Detweiler, those guys I'm getting some of, but the guy I have the most of is someone I told Josh I was going to have ownership on or exposure to this morning, just because of the price, and he's not getting any ownership really. Steven Brault at 5,400. It's not favorable. It's not a favorable spot. I don't want to get it twisted here. This is actually probably a bad spot here for Brault. He's not a guy that misses a ton of bats. He's been okay. I think he's got a near 10 swinging strike rate and above average chase rate. So it's not like he's been terrible. He's had decent starts. I think he's coming off, or maybe 2 starts ago, he went 7 innings, 8 Ks. Yeah, against the Cubs. So not saying he's going to do anything like that here. You're looking more for double-digit points to pair with a guy like Cole. And I just don't think if you're going to get Svali and Gerardo being chalk in this range, why no one's going to Brault in a similar situation. I mean, similar to Gerardo, I would say, at least.
I mean, yeah, you're right. Brault does project better than Gerardo. And I think the thing with Gerardo is you see a White Sox team is theoretically a better matchup on paper, whereas this Washington team, and the only hitter underneath a 104 WRC plus in that whole lineup is Adam Eaton. And he's certainly also been hitting really well recently. So, I didn't get to Brault much. I did see it happening with the projections, though, because when you have a little bit of randomness on there, he pops up above some of the other guys in that range. So, yeah, I could see going there, man, but I don't like going against the Nationals ever. Like, they are a team who can kind of give up just the limp kind of liners over and over again. And I think that's a thing that could help out Brault for sure. But I don't like going against them, especially with the 5 implied total. It's not a great spot.
For sure a scary matchup, but if he's going to be a quarter of the ownership, let's see where he's at in that last update. Yeah. If he's going to be like a quarter of the ownership of Gerardo, that's a pivot I'm willing to make. And it's not like I'm playing 50% of either guy. These are like 10, 20% plays, I think, at most.
Oh, also, the Dodgers lineup is out. And 1 point of consternation, I'm sure, for our premium Slack right now. We will not be getting jiggy with Will Smith today, it looks like.
Oh, no. That's going to, yeah. All that for nothing today.
Poor Dr. Miles is going to be real disappointed after debating Josh. In case you are, by the way, you're not used to what we talk about here with the premium membership here, the Osmo Plus membership that we do talk about a lot here. You do get access to a premium Slack with that, which includes a lot of people talking all throughout the day, as well as some of our hosts, and they jump in and we'll debate things and kind of argue with things. There's a lot of consternation about Will Smith and Josh not buying into Will Smith's quality hitting and a couple of people, in fairness, I think also Dan Strafford was on team Will Smith being somewhat competent, or at least more competent than he's shown in the minors. And it's a hell of a debate in there, but Will Smith, I guess, off the table at 5,400. What a price for Will Smith.
Yeah, that was going to be a price. So I think just quick reaction to that. Oh, we just got Yankees too. So I'm going to start crunching. Is it already 6:25 Eastern? Wow.
This time flies when you're having fun, Jake.
Yeah, I know. Wow. So I thought I was going to be crunching like 50 minutes before lock. Feels like I've been on the show for like 5 minutes, but okay. So going to crunch at normal time then, I suppose. But let me look at this Yankees lineup. LeMahieu, Judge, Gregorius, Urshela, Sanchez, Gardner, Torres, Tauchman, Ford. Is that the exact same lineup we were expecting?
I believe it is. I'm pasting it in right now, so I'll tell you in 1 second. So Gary got moved down, but that's it. That's the same guys. Yeah, looks like
they flipped Gary and Urshela.
Gary and Didi.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the same lineup.
So they're going to move decimal points for their projection. For the Dodgers, just instant reaction to that lineup. Now that they have a $3,300 catcher instead of a $5,400 catcher, I'm probably going to end up on some more Dodgers. That's also going to make them a little bit more popular, I would think, because they'll come up more in optimizers when you have Russell Martin in there for a reasonable price. Jock batting 7th. Kike, I don't know. Not exactly what I wanted to see out of the Dodgers here. But
so, I mean, I think one thing that they may have noticed, which it's, not a big sample size. Wagaspack has only faced 191 batters in the majors so far, but he's given up a 1.5 whip and a 6.1 xFIP to righties compared to a 1 whip and a 2.95 to lefties. So maybe getting a few more righties in there just to try to differentiate. And Pollock being moved up the order. I would think that's the reason why, because he does have appreciable splits. Also the power too. 250 ISO to righties compared to a 0.052 to lefties. So that's pretty big splits, but I would still think you'd have Will Smith in there instead of Russell Martin.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. And we just got ownership actually just now with Smith out of there. So I don't know how they updated it that quick, but it looks like it has all the updated everything. Wow.
And that is free. So go check it out right now on the site, and you could see where the lack of Will Smith has the ripple effects of this massive play being off the board. Though actually, I am more team Will Smith than team anti-Will Smith. And I think too, sometimes I get the longer sample size in the minors and all that, but I think sometimes guys can take a jump. I saw the movie The Natural. I know how it works. Roy Hobbs getting in there. It was a big thing. You have no idea what that movie is, do you?
Not a clue.
It is a baseball movie about a guy played by Robert Redford who is a really great baseball prospect, and he got shot by a girl who was he thought was trying to hook up with her or trying to hook up with him, and her thing was shooting and trying to kill. I don't even know if she killed, but just maiming Olympic and high caliber athletes. And then he came back when he was 35 and had a really great run and took a fictional team to the championship.
Sounds like another show I got to watch.
It's legitimately a really good movie. It's a classic movie, and Redford's really good in it. But it's just like a guy who's 35 and comes up into the majors, and he's just raking everything, just smashing every pitch. And it's fun though. It's really well shot in one of those old school Field of Dreams kind of ways, where it's old baseball, where people really loved it and cared.
Yeah, I've actually seen Field of Dreams when I was younger, maybe 10, 12 years ago, something like that. We just got Toronto too. There we go. Everything in. Everybody's
streaming in for you. They want to make sure that you got your Maeda leverage going. for all the Maeda I'm going to have. I actually kind of do wish I had some Toronto leverage right now.
It's just such a low total. Maeda's a good pitcher. And then even if you get him out early, it's not like the Dodgers have a ton of issues in their bullpen. I guess I haven't looked to see who's rested or anything like that, but I would imagine they've still got some quality arms there.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let me just get this Toronto lineup in. But we are about 1 minute away from Dong picks. So let's just close the loop on pitching here. We talked about most of the cheap guys, talked about the higher price guys who are getting ownership. So anybody else that you're getting who you feel like is worth hitting on before we get on the Dong picks?
We could maybe talk quickly about just Jurado.
Jurado and Detweiler, I guess. Which of those would you prefer, and which are you getting more of?
I guess I prefer Jurado. They're both just price plays. That's it. That is the only reason they're in play here, just because they're cheap. And Adam and Josh both said it best. It's something good should come from this Texas game, Texas White Sox, because there's a lot of cheap pricing and high implied totals, cheap pitchers. There's got to be something. So I'm stacking up both sides of it. I'm playing some of both pitchers, but more Jurado than Detweiler here for me.
Yeah, it is the same for me too. I mean, Jurado at least has shown some signs of being able to kind of just prevent runs and keep things under control a little bit. Still giving up pretty good power, but less power than you would think, in that he's pitching in Texas the majority of the time, or at least half the time. Just a 190 ISO, which Again, relative to what you would expect, I think maybe not as bad. So I don't hate the idea of going him, especially against the White Sox lineup, who's not so good, and also getting Yohan Moncada in there, who's theoretically healthy, but first game back could be not a perfect spot for him. And Detweiler just pretty terrible across the board. And we'll talk more about that in the hitting half of the show. But yeah, I would agree. Gerardo over Detweiler for me as well. All right, we're doing dong picks, and Chris Rendon, because he's on a hot streak, apparently just no respect for the hierarchy, much like EMAC yesterday picking Pete Alonso before you had officially entered your pick. But Chris Rendon is on a hot streak, so I'll allow it right now as the arbiter of dongs. 3 days in a row, Chris Rendon has gotten a home run. He's gotten 5 home runs in the last 3 days total, but 2 double dongs between Tom Murphy and Anthony Rizzo. And yesterday he went with Marcus Semien, a guy nobody was really on, going against J.A. Happ, and got it again. And Chris Rendon is going with a guy who I was actually very interested in, Hunter Pence. So that's a quality pick.
I wasn't going to take Pence, so that's okay.
Oh, you sly dog. You. Yeah. I'm gonna take my guy then, because I'm gonna go to the same game, and I will go to should I go to the lefty side? Yeah, I'll go to the lefty side. I'll go to Willie Calhoun.
All right, I'll take Yohan Moncada.
Oh, okay. See, we're talking about the value of Gerardo, and you're like, by the way, also going against Gerardo.
Oh, I mean, White Sox might be my highest owned stack, so we'll see. But
yeah, I got some of them too. And we'll see what Josh and EMAC come up with. Josh is going with Austin Meadows. Very logical pick, of course. Tampa Bay, one of the popular teams who we'll be talking about momentarily.
Good pick.
Also on the year, just to update real fast, EMAC still in first place at 28. Jake one behind him with 27 total dongs, and also one behind in correct picks. I am behind Josh, who has 23, so we're both a little bit away from you guys. 2 behind Josh. And Chris Rendon, his pick rate's coming up, but he's still bringing up the rear because he's just had less time doing it. And if he keeps up this hot streak, he may catch up with you boys by the time I get back from vacation next week.
What is he at for percentage-wise? Is he leading?
He's at 19%. So it's
really?
You and EMAC are both at 20. You're at 23.5. EMAC's at 23.4. Josh is at 22.6. I'm at 21.1, and Chris Rendon is at 18.8.
All right, maybe I should hold off until EMAC gets another one. But
fun fact though. So Chris Rendon has made 32 picks. EMAC has made 107. Chris Rendon has 2 double dongs. EMAC has 1.
Wow. So EMAC's just consistent. Chris is Rendon is just he likes the high upside performances, I suppose.
Yeah. EMAC is like the Ichiro of home run picks, just spraying it around.
Yeah, exactly.
Slap hit after slap hit. EMAC's pick is in, by the way. He is going with Ji-Man Choi for his pick.
Good pick. So okay. Let's expect people take some Rays bats. I mean, they are going to be pretty chalky after all.
I could tell you yesterday, having had Royals bats going against the Aaron Brooks buzzsaw, that was not the most fun watching Hunter Dozier. The calls in that game too. Like, I'm not a person who tries to follow the umpire stuff too much because it's too much to it's too much to worry about for me. Where I'll just be like, I'll be too into it. The calls going against Dozier and not Soler. Soler deserved everything he got, but Dozier just outside the plate by a foot, and it's just a strikeout twice. It was really frustrating.
Yeah, you didn't hear that Aaron Brooks is the GOAT? I mean, I was telling everyone that yesterday.
So did Alex. I mean, honestly, Adam and I both were team Mike Montgomery on the deeper dive. And I think relative to how much as one can be team Mike Montgomery. And Alex is like, Aaron Brooks is the pick, and Aaron Brooks was the pick, and his projections back that out. So felt real bad watching Mike Montgomery just get rocked. And it was just not even hard hits. It was just balls that just flew lightly off the bat. It was a terrible game to watch.
So that's what I equate the Steven Brault to Ariel Jurado thing tonight. One's just getting way less ownership, and I don't understand it. They project similarly in every projection system, I would imagine. So just go with the lower owned guy more often than not. I'm not saying you can't have shares of both of them, but I'm getting to more Brault unless we see something weird happen in the last ownership projections update.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk about our top stacks here because we should just go through it all. And we might as well talk about Tampa Bay since our esteemed colleagues, EMAC and Josh, 2 guys who I really hold in similar esteem, very similar personalities and overall kind of demeanors. I would say they are guys who are pretty smart with these kind of things, and they're going to Tampa Bay, who has one of the higher implied run totals of the day. Going into Asher Wojciechowski, a guy who's had strikeout upside, but also giving up a ton of power. He's really one of the more baffling pitchers I think you could look at data-wise. 280 ISO given up by him on the year in Baltimore as well, so there's going to be a park that enables power. And Tampa Bay looks pretty good. Not the worst prices, though there are a couple guys here. I don't know that I want to pay $5K for Eric Sogard in the leadoff spot, but it is one way to be contrarian, it looks like. Jake, these guys are super chalky. Where are you on the field with Tampa Bay?
I mean, phenomenal spot for Tampa. Can't take anything away from it here. I think Woj could, like, he's got the stuff to shut him down. He's got a high K rate, and that's scary against any stack, any team. We've seen Houston and Boston be shut down a bunch of times recently against much worse pitchers than Wojciechowski. That being said, not a lot of strikeouts in this matchup for him. And Tampa rolling out a bunch of guys with power, huge park shift here for Tampa, one of the worst hitting parks to a much, much better one. And 80 degrees, humid. Like, that's why you're seeing the 6+ implied total here. So I think they're at the highest implied total on the slate. So they're just more of an optimizer play. So I'm getting them in 2-mans a lot when I filter out my lineups, 2 and 3-mans. And then some, I'll get a handful of 4 and 5s. But I think overall I'm going to come in just slightly underweight on a lot of these hitters.
I think, well, so I guess Alex may have a different number for his implied runs because he does calculate them differently. But I think Atlanta's a little bit higher at 6.03 is what I have. And then 5.9 for Tampa Bay. But yeah, I mean, it's negligible.
Yep. So they're right up there.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's a spot here where I like Woj. I do have some Woj, even though like the projections really don't back it out. But he has a 27% K rate. And as Jake mentioned, the Rays really don't strike out here. And they just have a bunch of guys who have pretty solid power. And the K rate for them, the aggregate K rate of their lineup today is just 21%. So that is under league average. And also the aggregate WRC plus is 108. Decent power with a 171 ISO for that lineup, which really Matt Duffy's the one dragging that down. So yeah, it's not a great spot for Woj. I do think he is worth 1 or 2 lineups just because Tampa Bay is so chalky. I mean, you have like 25% ownership for Austin Meadows on DK, 22% for Travis d'Arnaud. Like, these are guys who are really highly owned. So I don't hate the idea of taking a pitcher who's shown some degree of quality and also maybe just a bit unlucky with power. Like, it seems hard to believe a guy can miss bats that well, but also give up a 280 ISO long term. So I think there's value in going to Woj, but yeah, I think the Tampa Bay lineups here look good. Are they going to be your top stack or one of your, I guess, where are they ranked for you?
They're not going to be my top stack. There's some other teams that are grading out similarly to them. So they're getting squeezed out a little bit as full stacks. But like I have a bunch of, like, I have all these guys in double digits basically. There's just a couple other teams that are looking a little bit more appealing for other reasons.
That is fair. Also, people in the chat for some reason asking, I assume some of the weather DFS people must have tweeted something here, but any concerns for the weather for you in Pittsburgh? Because I'm not seeing any postponement risk on our site, and I'm seeing it yellow on some of the other sites, but not anything too bad.
We've got no postponement risk. So no one's really talked about this game all day. I think probably a lot to do with nothing, if I had to guess. I guess something to monitor, but we've got, 25 minutes. I'm not playing a lot of that game anyways, maybe a few Nat stacks against Brault, but yeah, it's not something that's on my radar right now.
Yeah, I don't have much of that game either, so I'm not too concerned about it. And in Baltimore as well, I think the weather might be yellow on some sites, but I believe the expectation is the rain's coming after the game. So not anything that's affected my approach with Tampa Bay or with a little bit of Woj that I have. Who's going to be your top stack then if it's not Tampa Bay?
How about the Chicago White Sox? They're coming up a ton for me right now.
Okay.
So still playing Yurado, not going to back off that, but more White Sox. So really like Yoan Moncada, as I said, assuming he's fully healthy. I think that's a pretty fair assumption tonight. And you've got power and you're getting leverage off of one of the chalkiest pitchers. They also project really well. Like, they don't project that much worse than Tampa tonight, but they're not getting owned that way. At least a lot of their players, like Tim Anderson, is at just 7% ownership right now. Lurie Garcia leading off. I know these guys aren't great, but they're just not getting, I think, as much ownership as they should right now. So looking at the top stack tool, I guess they're fairly valued right now. But I think that you're seeing a lot of ownership on just a couple of their guys. Moncada is one of them, and I think Abreu is the other guy. But I'm finding myself getting to some really unique lineups by just going to a different stack than Tampa. And the White Sox are kind of my favorite right now.
So I have some White Sox too. I would say though, Gerardo's a bit owned, but he's not anywhere near Svali territory. So I just want to clarify that point for people out there. And of course, you can clarify it yourself with our ownership projections, which are free today, even though you should be getting them using that promo code live before lock for half off your first month of Osmo Plus. They are free for anybody. So just go to the site right now. I'll actually drop the link in the chat in a second here. But go check it out. Again, Gerardo is only 10% owned on DK right now. So he's not chalky. Yeah.
Wait, are you sure? I think he dropped. I think he went up. I mean,
in the most recent ownership, I just grabbed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right.
So would that change things for you at all?
Oh yeah, you're right. I thought I saw him at 16 before, but no, I mean, he's not like the chalkiest pitcher on the night, but whether he's 10, that's at least something. And I just am not in love with the Mets stack against Svali. Like that's like your pure leverage stack, I think. But the White Sox actually grade out well, and it's just a bonus that you're getting a pitcher with some ownership going against them.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, I think this is one I have a good amount on both sides with, and the power that Gerardo has given up, even though this is a good hitting park and on paper, it is still technically a park upgrade. It's only 70 degrees in Chicago today. So I do think that is maybe something where I could talk myself into more Gerardo, but I think this is probably a key spot where one of these outcomes here, I think, is going to be an important one for lineups tonight.
For sure.
Yeah. So who else are you getting here? Who would be your number 3 stack? Because I think, well, let's just talk Texas, because for me, that would be the top 3 for mine. They're going against Ross Detweiler, who stinks, and Texas also kind of stinks, but they have some guys in there who are cheap. Scott Heineman, who Adam talked about at length, and Josh mocked for having so much of him. I am heavily team Scott Heineman as well, because he projects well for us with our projections at Awesemo.com. It's a decent value and has dual position eligibility. So when I tried to get him out of my lineups, he kept popping up in first base, kept popping up in the outfield. It's like whack-a-mole for Scott Heineman. But how are you feeling about this Texas stack today, Jake? And what are you doing with the individual parts of here? Are you getting a 13% Scott Heineman or more, like some of us maybe?
Texas is more of a secondary stack for me tonight. Like they're fine. They're a good stack for sure. But you're seeing Andrews at 20% ownership right now. If I have these correct numbers, DeShield's getting a bunch of ownership as well. Forsythe, like just not great hitters. And if you could just play not great hitters on the White Sox for a similar implied total at less ownership. So for me, it's just an easy pivot there. Texas they've got some good value bats, but those guys are all getting ownership. And then the guys that are priced up, Calhoun and Pence, I don't think are that great of plays tonight. So lower on Texas than the White Sox here, but it's Ross Detweiler also. So I understand it.
Yeah, Detweiler. So the things that jump out, I mean, the power that Detweiler's given up overall, 281 ISO to everybody, 340 ISO, only faced 54 lefty batters, but a 340 ISO to the same handed bats. And on to the righties, a 261 ISO, as well as a 1.9 whip and a 7x FIP. Just really not good numbers for Ross Detweiler going back to last year. And I think Texas, they have enough guys here. I think some people are like, oh, Chu isn't in there. It's a worse lineup. Chu doesn't really hit lefties that well, even though, he is a good enough hitter overall. I think I don't mind him not being in there. Like Willie Calhoun being in there. Santana as well would have been nice to have in there, but what are you going to do? I think you got to take what you can get. So yeah, anybody going against Ross Detweiler, I'm willing to play, and that extends to Texas today, and that extends to Scott Heineman and his 1 WRC plus versus lefties. What a treat! 0.000 ISO.
Yeah, but small sample. I don't think Heineman is a bad play.
He's going to positively regress. We all know that.
Yeah. That's a nice way to put it.
Tomorrow we'll all be talking about him like he's the new Will Smith. I think that's how we're going to be handling that. Also, guys, hit that like button, please. It's they had some lofty goals for likes today, which I don't think were feasible. But guys, hit the like button because it helps us out here, helps us keep the lights on, and also helps keep everybody happy here, including Jake and myself. We derive so much value from all the likes we get on this YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's a great way to run your life. Just how many likes you get. Yeah. But no,
right. It's like
300, right? We got to 300 yesterday. We got 210 right now. I think we'll get close.
Wait, are we? Oh, so my numbers haven't updated then, because I'm seeing us at 75. Oh, we're not that far then.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. I think.
That's weird. Actually, the numbers were totally wrong for me. I was seeing much less live viewers and also much less likes. That's confusing.
Oh, well, don't fear, Spags. We've got a lot more likes than you think.
Now I can keep living my life as I would have anyway, because that I told you guys the likes matter to me. So thank you guys for not making me want to just jump off my balcony at any moment. We also just got an ownership update too. So the ownership updates keep coming. Even when they're free, they're coming out like hotcakes. So get that in there.
Hotcakes don't sound too bad right now, to be honest. That sounds
I had a Popeye spicy chicken again, and like for the second time this week. And just because like I keep seeing people post it, and like I got it the first time because I was like, I just got to try it. And I'll tell you what, man, that sandwich fucking slows me down.
So is that like a new thing? Why is everybody talking about? I haven't been on Twitter that much lately. Is that like a new thing they're doing? Popeyes, this new sandwich, or
So yeah, they launched them ironically, or maybe not ironically, the same week that Wendy's put out their spicy chicken nuggets.
Oh.
I think they're doing a little like, oh, we'll show you guys. But then Wendy's spicy chicken thing was like a thing that was like a year in the making, and they had this whole marketing campaign behind it. And the Popeyes thing was just like they put it out, and then it's getting a lot more buzz and a lot more like viral heat because everybody's talking about it. But it is a good sandwich. I still would favor Chick-fil-A, but it's got a different quality to it. They're beautiful in their own ways, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to try these out at some point. So I don't eat much fried chicken, but definitely not against it.
I mean, you are a snack on your own, Jake. You don't need other fried chicken. People are really confused when I call you that opening the show. That is in fact a callback to Josh's wife calling him that. To be clear,
not everyone's going to. You don't need to explain the joke.
No, I want to because I don't want people to think I'm just sexually harassing you on the live stream. Gotta all these new HR things, Jake. Gotta get real fast.
That's actually smart then.
Gonna be a problem on tsheets.com. Let's keep it moving here on the stacks. We got some other stacks that I'm getting. So I got a little bit of Mets because I think going against Svali just kind of makes sense. The numbers do look good for Svali. He's given up only a 1.2 whip or xFIP rather to the left side of the plate, 3 xFIP to the right side. So things have looked good for him, but could certainly regress, especially the fact he's given up no home runs on the year. Are you getting any Mets going against Svali?
Not really. Like barely any, even like one-offs. I thought I would get to some, but they just project so poorly. Like, and looking at it, I can see more why that is. Like, so earlier today, I was trying to poke holes in Svali. Like you mentioned, xFIP good. He's been solid against both sides. It's a small sample on this guy still, but I think he's going to be pretty decent if he's not already. And there's not a real reason to go to the Mets outside of ownership. And even with that, like you can just play teams at similar prices that have way better implied totals. So it would take a lot for the Mets to actually win you a tournament, like against a 40% owned pitcher, even still.
So I got some minis just because of the power that they have. Like Alonso, I mean, you're paying a pretty steep price for Alonso on DK, but a 311 ISO versus righties, like it's still a good number to me, especially at 2% ownership and just the ownership going for Svali. I agree on the full stack. I think Svali can keep it in pocket. And the Cleveland bullpen also not that bad behind them. And the park as well going to help out Svali more than it does the hitters. But I still think it's a spot where I could see getting Alonso, Conforto, Ramos, even Ahmed Rosario, who's not terribly priced. Joe Panic, I think people may land on a little bit because of that price, but really no power versus righties with the .083 ISO. So I'm tried to avoid him, but I think a 3-man or mini stacks or 2-1s, I think that's sort of where I fell with them.
If the Mets stack ships it tonight, just know that I called it early. I called it an early night and am not winning all the money.
The triple dong for Pete Alonso. That's a day after EMAC called him, and I tried to get him yesterday. It would feel real good today, I think.
that would feel really good, I'm sure.
How about Atlanta for you? Because they actually have debatably the highest team total on the slate with 6 implied runs. I guess depends upon how you calculate them, but they're probably right there, at least with Tampa Bay. So how are you feeling about Atlanta here going against Sandy Alcantara, who's getting a pretty big park downgrade, doesn't miss bats, but does limit power fairly well, just a 163 ISO allowed going back to last year. Yeah,
I love Atlanta tonight. They're like a top 3 stack for me. I think looking at all my exposures right now, absolutely love them. Gets Alcantara, not a guy who's going to miss a lot of bats. I think he's under a 17% K rate on the season. You've got hot, pretty humid weather in Atlanta, and then they're also an anti-optimizer play. At least they're expensive pieces. So a lot of my top ranked lineups have Acuna and or Freeman and or are just Braves stacks. So I really, really, really like the Braves here.
I got there less than I thought I would. I think, they project well, so I'm actually not really sure why I didn't. I think I just might have kind of favored Texas a little bit more and just kind of forced them in more than the Braves. But I agree. Like, I think it's a nice spot here. And Alcantara, it really hasn't shown much. I think run prevention is a thing that he has been decent at, but even still he has a 5.7 xFIP. So it's still like there could be worse for him to come. So yeah, I don't hate the idea of the Braves. And it does seem like a nice spot for them with the hottest park, I guess, overall, 85 degrees in Atlanta, plus a little humidity. Everywhere else kind of cold relative to what we've expected in these summer months.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty excited about the Braves once again tonight. I always play Josh's team and win all the money with them, and then he doesn't play them. So excited. I didn't hear if he was on them, though. Usually we're opposing sides here, but hopefully he's on some Braves as well.
I feel like he was under on them, but I might just be imagining. It just seems like a Josh thing, or to be like, I'm under on the Braves because there's a high implied run total, blah blah blah.
I got to hear more of this impersonation.
It's a little bit of Ray Romano. just
that is not the vibe I get from Josh at all.
But the voice wise though, it's like, oh come on, I'm Josh. Oh, it's like Ray Romano.
Oh my gosh! Wow, I don't even want to hear your impersonation of me.
Oh no, yours would be much nicer. Yours would be like, ooh, it'd be real dreamy sounding.
Well, I don't think Ray Romano's bad. I think I watched Everybody Loves Raymond when I was a kid.
There we go. So. But not The Natural. Just
that's never heard of it.
All right. Well, how about the Dodgers, Jake? Getting 5.9 implied runs for them too. So they're right there in that Tampa Bay Atlanta tier in terms of the Vegas total for these guys. Going against Jacob Waguespack, who, as we talked about, has some splits that are noticeable versus lefties, really been okay versus lefties, but bad versus righties. The expectation, though, is that the lefty stats can't hold up. And the Dodgers are going to be pretty decently owned here, at least the top four. And Jock Peterson, who maybe the ownership may shift around a bit because he's dropped down the order there. But how are you feeling about the Dodgers, who are kind of chalky, but not onerously chalky, according to the top stacks tool?
Not getting there all that much. That, like, once again, man, I'm not getting to a lot of Dodgers, and it's just because, like I mentioned, I'm getting to a lot of Braves. They're owned. A lot of their guys are owned. Like, you're getting Pollock in double digits. You're getting Jock in double digits. Muncy as well. So it's kind of hard to make a lineup that I think won't be duplicated. Bellinger as well. Russell Martin, under 5% ownership on DK. That's actually not too bad, but still not getting to many Dodgers stacks, that is. I'm still getting to these guys. They're all very good hitters. Individual matchups, they look great. But a team that I'm going to be underweight on for stacks. What about you?
I like them a little bit. I didn't get there quite as much as I thought I would have. Just one of those teams where I just ended up heavier on the glorious White Sox as well as Texas and Tampa Bay. And I got some Dodgers in there, but mostly as smaller stacks. I didn't really get the full too much because the prices are kind of tough if you're trying to full stack them and put them in there with Gerrit Cole. So I really didn't land there that much. I also didn't play Russell Martin, so that would be one price point that could save things a bit. But he just also sucks so bad. Like, I really would have preferred to have even high-priced Will Smith in there because at least he has shown some power. Russell Martin, just a 118 ISO. Like, he feels like the guy who kind of – he can get there, I guess, but he feels like the guy who's going to hold back that stack even if it did go off.
I agree. So I thought if he was going to be owned like as one of the higher pieces in that Dodgers stack, I guess they're not quite expensive enough. Like, you still got decent mid-tier value with Seager and Turner and Pollock. So I'm guessing people just aren't. It's not as necessary to have a $3,300 catcher in the stack. Whereas if he was $3,300 for like Houston and they were going to be chalky, then he would be crazy chalky because he would just come up in optimizers.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much how I feel about it too. But Martin, never really a bad part of going with a catcher who's cheap as part of a 5-man stack, and you could certainly have some trickle down production if these guys are getting on base in front of them and creating those extra at bats. So there's nothing wrong with going to him, especially at 4% ownership. He is one of the lesser owned Dodgers pieces alongside Kike Hernandez, who's coming in late to the lineup as well and has that righty matchup. So I think going to one of those two guys, I would prefer to go to Kike personally, but I think if you go to Russell Martin, you're getting the same discount and also getting less ownership. So that's the move.
Yeah.
How about the Astros? Because they are also getting a decent implied total here, 5.6 implied runs going against Jordan Zimmerman, who has offered very little of resistance this year, a 1.5 whip and a 5.2 xFIP, also giving up a good amount of power, 10% barreled ball rate. The Astros, so I thought Josh and Adam did a good job talking about this as well in the deeper dive, talking about Abraham Toro and how him being in the lineup, you can't play him on any site today. It kind of ruins things. You lose some stack flexibility, you lose some value flexibility there. So how are you feeling about Houston as a full stack and as many stacks? Like, how are you feeling about them overall?
A lot of Jordan Alvarez one-offs, Jordan Alvarez one-offs. Other than that, not crazy about Houston. Like I said, I'm playing a ton of Gerrit Cole. And if I'm doing that, it's even difficult to play a bunch of 5K hitters, the guys you actually want to play 1 through 6, if you're stacking, if you're playing a 12K pitcher. So they're getting squeezed out for me. If they go off, they go off. And that probably means Cole's not the nuts. But I'm going to take my chances the other way. And then you mentioned the Abraham Toro not being in the player pool. that makes it more frustrating to try to stack because it's that less of a unique stack.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's tougher to get there. I mean, if you're trying to save money, you're pretty much either going to Maldonado or Reddick now. And those guys, not the best hitters in the world. And Toro does project to be a decent hitter, so that's somebody you may want to have more of your lineups eventually. But yeah, it's right now you're paying a lot of premium for these guys, and going to Jordan, never a bad move either because of that power that he's had on the year. Still had a 357 ISO versus righties on the year, which is pretty crazy given the amount of at bats he's had.
Guy's good.
But yeah, it's I think a decent spot for Houston, and they are kind of they're not projecting terribly well. Like the value's not there spectacularly, but I do think they are kind of the anti-optimizer play that Alex mentions a bunch because people probably won't land there. But if you get there and they go off, there's really no reason they can't go off against Zimmerman, and people don't seem like they'll be there much for the full stack.
Fair enough. Yeah. They're just it sucks to not be on the Astros and the Dodgers on a slate like this because they are at least the Astros are the anti-optimizer play, but Cole is just more of a necessity, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. And as you mentioned, that is just pretty much an impossibility to get there. I really don't even know who you would go to. I guess maybe like a Miami if you were, or Detroit. Yeah. If you want to load up on Detroit, hope they get off against the Houston bullpen.
I mean, you could 4 3-man stack it pretty easily. I'm sure some of those are in my crunch here, but they're not coming up in total exposure. Like I'm seeing a lot of 2 out of 150, 3 out of 150 type of guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. Who else are you getting here? Anybody weird that we haven't hit on yet? Because we have some teams left that I feel like maybe aren't popping up a bunch, but I assume you might have one weird team here that we haven't touched on.
Yeah, how about the St. Louis Cardinals? This is not one I expected to be on earlier today. You look at their implied total on Alex's projections, and they're at 4.6. So it's not like they even have a super favorable like run total or anything like that. They're just cheap, and they allow me to fit in Cole, and they're not getting a lot of ownership because they're going up against a good pitcher. So I thought I was going to have some Marquez on the non-Cole lineups. It turns out I just got all Cole and no Marquez on DK. The Cardinals just going a little bit overlooked. That's really all it is. And they're super, super cheap.
So yeah, I got some Cardinals too with our projections, again, which you can get with the Osmo, Osmo.com/join with the promo code live before lock for half off your first month of Osmo Plus. The prices do work for these guys, but like Marquez, I mean, he's pitching at Coors at least half the time. 144 ISO to righties and a 1 whip and a 2.9 xFIP. And now he's in St. Louis, which is going to be a much better park to kind of help him out. Like I really couldn't justify getting there too much because I just think he's been good and like really not giving up any power, not getting hit too hard. 3.5 xFIP on the year overall. Like he's been good. And I think kind of a forgotten man. I don't want to play him today because I think, as we talked about earlier, like I would go slightly cheaper with Soroka if I had to, or I would much rather go up to Cole. But I do think that he's a guy who's not going to give up too much to St. Louis, so I'm less inclined to go there. But from a value perspective, I could definitely get it.
Right. I end up on basically no Marquez across the 2 sites. So hoping he stays quiet. And I do have exposures here if we want to go over anything. Or what other stacks do you want to talk about?
Let's see. Who else? How about this Oakland game? Because Oakland did just have some runs yesterday against J.A. Happ. And Tanaka, I feel like I've seen people talking about targeting Tanaka today, at least in like the chats and the YouTube comments and all that, because he has not been good on the year. Still not giving up a ton of power, just a 4% on run rate, but his K rate's down to 19%. He's also just kind of looking mediocre overall. How are you feeling about Oakland going against Tanaka, given that these guys do have power? It's not a great park, but Tanaka's also not been great as well.
Oakland's just a little bit priced out of play. Like I mentioned, I think St. Louis is my play in this low tier, and you're not getting that favorable of pricing, I think, for Oakland overall, besides the bottom of the lineup guys. And then Chris Davis, of course. So I'm going to get to my 10% of Chris Davis or whatever it usually is, because he just pops up because he's a better hitter than 3,200. But I still don't think Tanaka's bad. I still think the park is not great for hitting. So that side, I'm going they're going overlooked for me, at least. I don't see anything super special about Oakland. Do you like either side of this for hitting? Because I kind of like the Yankees a little bit.
So yeah, I could see the Yankees. I didn't quite get there much. I think I have a couple like one-offs and mini stacks of them, but I didn't land there too much for them. But what are you seeing with the Yankees that makes them appealing to you?
Just well, first of all, higher implied total and lower pricing on DraftKings. So the Yankees more of a DraftKings play than anything for me. Judge at 4K, just talked about Chris Davis not being a $3,200 hitter. Judge is not a 4K hitter ever. And I would argue Sanchez is not he should be near 5K, the park, whatever. He's priced down a little bit, but you're getting good prices on Urshela. And then I love Gleyber Torres when he bats down in the order because he's still got that dual position eligibility and he's still got a ton of power for 4,300 here. So I just like their individual pieces, and some of these guys are not getting much ownership on DraftKings.
Yeah, and according to the top stack tool, they do have a better chance of being a top stack relative to their ownership. So, and actually one of the bigger differentials on the slate, it looks like just behind Houston currently, at least on the most recent update that I have in my sheet. So yeah, I could see that being a spot that has value. I didn't quite get there because of the park, and I kind of made my bed where I'm making it today. But yeah, I agree. Like there is power here, and these guys are priced. And you're right. Like if this were a game in Yankee Stadium, probably going to be about a 1K difference for a lot of these guys on the site. And that's a pretty big differential here, even though Oakland not the best hitting park.
Yeah, I think Yankees just a little bit too discounted, whereas Oakland, I think they're just kind of fairly priced across the board.
Here's a hot take from Bradley Byrne in the YouTube chat. Winning lineups will have Cole. I agree.
Well, I hope so, because then I got one spot locked in, basically. I've got 90% Cole on DraftKings.
Wow. I am actually, you know what?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm at 85.
So, all right, yeah. So it's something I almost never do, but you also almost never have a pitcher on the slate that projects for 10 points better than the second best pitcher. So I hate locking myself into a certain lineup construction. But I'm not doing that. Like I'm getting a diverse portfolio of different type of lineups, but the Cole ones just grade out so much better, even when I juice up the hitters in my projections here. So I'm still getting to a lot of Atlanta bats. I'm still getting to all the teams that provide value and aren't super owned. So I like it, man. Gonna down with Cole today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only getting 5 pitchers today now that I'm looking at it. I'm only getting Cole, Maeda, Svali, Jurado, and then one lineup with Detweiler. So that's all I have today because nobody else really graded out that well. Nobody popped up in the lineups that I wanted. So those are my guys, which doesn't feel great.
I have a bunch of Cole, Svali. So Svali actually pretty easily my second highest owned pitcher. Got him at 46%. That seems a little aggressive. But he does grade out as by far the best value in that range. Then Maeda, 21, so underweight on Maeda a little bit. And then my boy Brault, Jurado, Michaelis, and Detweiler. Then one share of Asher Wojciechowski out of 150.
Yeah, I lost my Asher somewhere along the way. I lost my Asher Wojciechowski lineup somewhere along the way, which actually kind of bums me out because I had 2 of them. I think, they must have fallen off when I redid a crunch. Damn it. Well, now I have no Wojciechowski, which kind of freaks me out a little bit because even though we talked about that spot quite a bit, not a great strikeout spot, but I do think the talent here could be worth. I think he's worth more than 3% ownership he has for sure.
Yeah, I would like to get like 5-10% somewhere in there of Wojciechowski because I do think he provides the reverse correlation as well for the chalkiest stack. If he does do well, you're also like Tampa stacks are pretty much just dead if he has a good game. So I guess that's not true because you could still get to the Baltimore bullpen, but you would think more often than not if Wojciechowski has a good game here that Tampa does not. And I'm a little bit underweight on Tampa, so would have liked to get just a little bit more of Wojciechowski, but I guess I'll take my one share.
Get your Tampa Bay mini stacks with your Wojciechowskis in there, and then just hope the bull. That's one of those weird conditionals. That's more of a 4-game slate, not even a 4-game, like a 2-game slate play than a 9-game slate play.
So I'm actually getting to a lot more 2- and 3-man Tampas than full stacks.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I mean, it does make sense because look, he has a 1.2 whip on the year, so he's not giving up like a ton of like individual like plays of value. But when he does give up the valuable plays, kind of like Adam Plutko, like if he's given up something, it's given up a home run. But otherwise, he's kind of keeping it in pocket. So I think it's not the craziest thing to go to like mini stacks instead of full stacks.
Yeah.
And we got 1 minute left to lock, guys. So get your lineups in right now. And also hit that like button as soon as you're done getting your lineups in. Celebrate with yourself. Hey, you did a good job getting your lineups in. And then you can just like click that like button. That's your little, like, that's your champagne glass at the end of it all. Is helping us out, keeping the lights on here on this YouTube channel. Anything else you're getting in your hitting exposures that kind of surprised you relative to what we talked about?
Just White Sox got more Rangers than I anticipated on FanDuel. On FanDuel, I have 92.7% Cole, 139 out of 150. So I'm basically all in on this cat tonight. If he lets me down, he'll be dead to me. But no, I mean, he should have a good game and be the raw point scorer, you would think. And if he's not, then I'm not going to have a good night.
He would also be dead to you for 5 days. And the second that he's playing, like, I don't know, Miami next, or he probably not playing Miami, but somebody, you're like,
I don't
lock him in again.
I don't hold, grudges against any of these guys. They've all done me wrong. They've all done me right. The variance will balance out in the long run, right?
That's what we hope for here. And you know what, Jake? I don't hold grudges against players, but one thing I do hold grudges against is daily fantasy sites that charge a rake, because I like rake-free daily fantasy, and that's why I'm a big fan of FantasyDraft.com. Not because they're a presenting sponsor of Live Before Lock, even though that does help quite a bit, but also because they are the home of rake-free daily fantasy sports. Now you can play your favorite contests rake-free on Fantasy Draft, where 100% the entry fees are paid to the contest winners. For a limited time, Fantasy Draft is offering a free 7-day trial on your first $1,000 in rake-free entries. So go to FantasyDraft.com right now. Again, we talked about the NFL free roll they're doing right now for preseason. So go check that out if you want. That's obviously an easy thing you can do without even depositing much. But go ahead, go use the promo code OSMO if you do want to make a deposit. Get your free 7-day trial and get your first $1,000 in rake-free entries. And also, of course, go check out Osmo Plus for the night slate. Our night slate content is the best in the industry. We have ownership projections, player projections. Also, the top stacks tool gets updated for that. So go check that out right now. Go to osmo.com/join. Use that promo code Live Before Lock for half off your first month of Osmo Plus. And Jake, what is your schedule coming up for the people? Give them your little pluggies.
Sure. All right. So tomorrow's Friday, correct? So we've got Yahoo show. Myself, Josh, and Alex. I believe it'll be all three of us. It'll at least be 2 out of the 3. That's tomorrow at 1 Eastern. We've got Live Before Lock, me and you. Let's see. Not a plug for me, but just a plug in general. We do have these college football season preview articles up on the site. So go give those a look. Ben, Raza, Jordan, Frank, they worked really hard on those. So we published those today. There's 3 of them. So go check them out. You can find in the other sports tab, you just click on CFB. College football starts this weekend. I think just a 2-game slate, if I'm correct, and then gets really kicked off next week. So go do that.
Yeah, for all the people who've been dying for football season to be here, now it's here. We got the preseason NFL contest. You got your college football stuff kicking up right now. And, of course, we're going to have a ton of content for you on Osmo.com. So make sure to go follow the main handle on Twitter as well, at Osmo_com. That's where all these stuff is trickling throughout the day, all the videos we do for MLB, all the stuff we have coming up for NFL. There's a lot of things on there that'll help make you smarter in DFS. So go check it out right now on that Osmo_com. And yeah, it'll be Jake and I back tomorrow for a Friday show. So tune in here, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And we'll see you guys again soon. So good luck, guys. Enjoy your nights.